们的论坛即将开始，我们要邀请我们的贵宾尽速的就座。Our ceremony will start soon. Please have your seat. 各位贵宾午安，欢迎您莅临来参与今天的永续城市论坛。我是今天的司仪张怡芬。我们这次的论坛不但是现场有非常多的贵宾来到线上，那么同时也有非常多的朋友今天是在直播的过程当中跟我们一同来参与。我们今天的论坛主轴是永续复苏，也希望大家在今天的论坛当中都能获得非常多的收获。Ladies and gentlemen.Welcome to the Sustainable City Forum 2021. I'm today's MC, Eva Zhang. In today's MC, our theme of the forum is the sustainable recovery. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to join today's forum. First, I would like to welcome our honorable guest. 我要为您介绍今天来到现场的几位贵宾。首先，第一位是我们的大家长，桃园市政府的副市长李宪明。Let's welcome Mr. Li Xianming, Deputy Mayor of Taoyuan City Government. 第二位来到现场的与会贵宾是立法院的副院长，也是立法院联合国永续发展目标策进会的会长蔡其昌，欢迎。Let's welcome Mr. Cai Qichang, Vice President of the Legislative Yuan, will also be the UN Sustainable Development Goals Advisory Council of the Legislative Yuan. 第三位是国际气候发展智库的理事长，也是行政院能源办公室减碳办公室的副执行长林子伦。Let's welcome Mr. 林子伦 ，President of the ICDI. 第四位是法国在台协会的主任龚孙孟先生。Let's welcome Mr. Jean-François Casaubon-Massonab, Director of French Office in Taipei. 第五位是德国在台协会的处长王子陶博士，欢迎您。Let's welcome Dr. Thomas Prince, Director of General of the German Institute Taipei. 第六位是奥地利的台北办事处处长陆德飞先生，欢迎您。Let's welcome Mr. Roland Rodolfer, Director of Austrian Office Taipei. 第七位是丹麦商务办事处的处长博孟德先生。Let's welcome Mr. Bo Monstedt, Director of the Trade Council of Denmark, Taipei. 继续是比利时台北办事处的处长文浩德先生。Let's welcome Mr. Frederick Verhenden, Director of Belgian Office, Taipei. 第九位是泰国贸易经济办事处的代表通才先生。Let's welcome Mr. Chongchai Chasawath, Executive Director of Thailand Trade and Economic Office. 第十位是巴布亚纽几内亚驻台商务代表处的代表康德明先生，欢迎您。Let's welcome Mr. Tom Kambukunji, Representative of Papua New Guinea Trade Office in Taiwan. 继续是波兰台北办事处的处长李波先生。Mr. Bartosz Szlisz, Head of Polish Office in Taipei. 纽西兰商工办事处的代表李思怡，欢迎您。Let's welcome Mr. Stephanie Lee, Director of New Zealand Commerce and Industry Office. 第13位是澳洲办事处的副代表莫伯仁，欢迎代表。Let's welcome Mr. Brent Moore, Deputy Director of Australia Office. 这句呢是马来西亚友谊及贸易中心的副代表 El Fadil Adam， 欢迎您。Let's welcome Mr. El Fadil Adam, Deputy Director of Malaysia Friendship and Trade Center Taipei. 第15位是欧洲经贸办事处贸易政策组的组长雍清龙先生。Let's welcome Dr. Thomas Jorgensen, Head of Trade Section of European Economic and Trade Office. 我们要继续欢迎的是匈牙利贸易办事处投资商务主任方志勇先生 ，Mr. Franz Fasci, Investment and Trade Director of the Hungarian Trade Office. 第17位是捷克经济文化办事处的商务组组长 Milan Horak， 欢迎您。Mr. Milan Horak, Head of Economic and Trade Section of Czech Economic and Cultural Office. 第16位是法国格勒诺布尔大都会区大使费欧德先生 will welcome Mr. Pascal Viard, Ambassador of Grenoble Alpes Metropole, France. 继续是桃园市的副秘书长邱俊明，副秘书长欢迎您。Let's welcome Mr. 邱俊明 Deputy Secretary General of 桃园 City。好，继续呢是我们今天的讲者之一，我们桃园市的环保局局长吕礼德局长，欢迎您。Let's welcome Mr. 吕礼德 Director General of Department of Environment Protection of 桃园 City。继续我们要来介绍的是高雄市的环保局局长张瑞浑局长。Mr. 张瑞浑 Director of Environmental Protection Bureau 高雄 City Government。好，继续要欢迎的是新竹市的交通处的处长倪茂荣先生 ，Mr. 倪茂荣 Director General of the Department of Transportation 新竹 City Government。局长到了吗？还没到。好，继续我们要欢迎的是台南市交通局的副局长熊万莹副局长。Mr. 熊万莹 Deputy Director General of Bureau of Transportation 台南 City Government。今天贵宾非常多。继续我们要欢迎的是 ICLEI KCC 的主任蔡婉田主任。Let's welcome Mr. 蔡婉田 Director of ICLEI KCC。继续要欢迎欧洲商会低碳倡议行动指导委员、香港商一发半导体有限公司台湾分公司的总经理以及亚太区的副总裁尹荣副总裁。欢迎您 ，Let's welcome Mr. Giuseppe Iso, ECCT LCI Steering Committee MD Taiwan VP Asian Pacific Region Economy。第26位是欧洲商会的执行长何飞毅 ，Let's welcome Mr. Freddie Holland, CEO of the ECCT。继续要欢迎欧洲复兴开发银行的资深顾问杨雅文杨顾问，欢迎您。好。接续我们要欢迎台湾科斯 TPU 台湾及东南亚区业务处长陈敏生 ，Let's welcome Mr. Eddie Chen, Head of Sales Taiwan and Asia TPU Covestro Limited。好，我们最后要欢迎国际气候发展智库的执行长赵公岳赵执行长 ，Let's welcome Mr. 赵公岳 Executive Director of ICDI。好的，那么今天呢，非常多的贵宾来到现场，我们可以听到，非常多，很多的，包括政府跟私人领域的这个代表们都来到这边。那么今天原本我们的桃园大家长市长郑文灿市长是要过来的，不过因为公务繁忙，不过他也委请了副市长来到这边来给予我们最大的祝福。Let's welcoming the legislative 院。Vice President of Legislative 院蔡其昌副院长来上台为我们说几句话。
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lee, government officials from Taoyuan City Government, distinguished guests from different countries, friends from home and abroad, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to join you at the Sustainable City Forum. You probably know that at the Legislative Yuan, I established the UN Sustainable Development Committee. Sustainability is a very important topic. We want to show our commitment and attitude by establishing such a committee that shows the attitude of the Legislative Yuan in Taiwan on this topic. We also want to come up with some concrete actions in several directions. The first direction, of course, is to supervise what the government is doing on SDGs. The strategy adopted by the government, the direction taken by the government, and also the timeline of achieving SDGs in Taiwan. So we hope that with such an advisory group at the Legislative Yuan, we can have a better supervision over what the government is doing. Other than that, I think the Legislative Yuan represents the general public in Taiwan. We also want to use the advisory group as a platform. With that, we can gather the efforts of NGOs, the government, and also civil society. So this is a great platform for people from all walks of life to collaborate and work on achieving SDGs. We can work together to come up with the directions and objectives in achieving SDGs. I said several times that sustainability is an issue for the whole world. That includes all the countries and everybody on Earth. I think if animals and plants have their say that they will also express they would like to have sustainability for the future of this planet. So the legislative yuan is connecting with international community, including a lot of institutions and friends for exchanges, including forums like this. We also like to urge all the government to work harder on sustainability. We even have the office to promote a low carbon society at the executive yuan. So as you can see that we really think sustainability is our shared goal for the future. That's why I'm here to join you on this special occasion. I really hope that we can work together. We can come up with consensus and concrete actions to work toward sustainability. I'm from the Legislative Yuan. I think this is a great opportunity for us to share with you the attitude of Legislative Yuan of sustainability. I say that this is also a great platform. I'm inviting you to work with us in the future. With this platform, we will come up with more details. For example, we will collaborate with ECCT. So if you have any good ideas, come to us. We are more than willing to work closely with you on these very important issues. We have many great speakers today, so I will not give a long talk. Let me just wish the forum a great success. Let's work together to achieve SDGs, to protect our planet for us and also for the generation to come. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Your inspirational speech. 接下来我们就要邀请我们的大家长，我们的桃园市副市长李。
Vice President of Legislative Yuan, Mr. Tsai, and all the distinguished guests participating in today's conference, Secretary Generals and the representatives of the various countries' office in Taiwan, all the distinguished guests from different counties and cities in Taiwan. I'm quite pleased to attend today's forum. Taoyuan, in terms of its industrial output, it has the largest ranked among Taiwan. Therefore, its load is also very, very heavy. And today, the theme is talking about sustainability recovery. It is very quite meaningful for today's forum. I know that human beings' civilization is based on everyone's effort in order to realize that. Therefore, the biggest challenge for the sustainability lies on cities. Cities, we have about 50% of the population living here. And in addition, it consumes 80% of the energy. All of these will cause a very heavy load for the earth. And this city is a core for the human being to live. Therefore, Taoyuan city government in promoting this eco logistics and circular economy as well as smart city, we hope in the development of the city, we should reduce the pollution, minimize pollution to the planet. I know that around the whole world, in the various countries, everyone focuses on this issue, has been putting a lot of effort to overcome, and in the hope to reduce the load for the earth. I know today we have a lot of distinguished guests and experts, specialists attend this forum. So I hope that all of you can provide the best ideas and opinions so that afterwards it can be referred by various countries. And in the end, finally, on behalf of Taoyuan City citizens, to sincerely welcome everyone to come to Taoyuan to attend this forum and hope the success of this forum and a breakthrough from the forum, and everyone can gain very enriched knowledge. Thank you very much.
给我们的勉励 ，Thank you。接下来我们要来欢迎的是我们来自线上的一些祝福哦。我们首先要来欢迎的是 ICLEI 的秘书长 Gino Van Begin 为我们来致辞。Let's welcome the Secretary General of the ICLEI, Gino Van Begin, for the opening remarks.
Honorable Mayor Chen of Taoyuan, dear Vijay Yagananthan, Secretary General of CityNet, dear Yasuo Takahashi-san, Executive Director of IGES, dear Matthew Jordan Tank, Director at EBRD, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of ICLEI, I would like to thank you for this exciting opportunity to provide some introductory remarks to the 2021 Sustainable City Forum, which this year is held under the theme of sustainable recovery. ICLEI is proud and delighted to continue in the tradition of this forum, which has now been successfully convened for several years. Of course, I would very much have preferred to be with you in person today. However, I'm happy to see that we have the opportunity to gather virtually to advance on joint challenges despite the pandemic. As cities are focusing on their response to the pandemic, this past year has also shown that the climate crisis does not stop in times of the pandemic. It is therefore crucial that each and every city incorporate sustainability principles into their recovery efforts and integrate the responses to both crises. I believe that we'll hear some great examples of this later today, not only in regard to ICLEI's support to the ecologistics community in Taoyuan, but also from many of the trusted partners gathered here. At the same time, we as cities and regions need to accelerate our efforts to support our national governments and the international community to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. One avenue for this is the UNFCCC's Cities Race to Zero. The Cities Race to Zero is initiated by the high-level champions for climate action. And this global campaign seeks to rally leadership and support from cities, regions, and other civil society stakeholders for a healthy, resilient, zero-carbon recovery that prevents future threats and unlocks inclusive, sustainable growth. The objective is to build momentum around the shift to a decarbonized economy ahead of the COP26, where national governments must strengthen their contributions to the implementation of the Paris Agreement. This will send national governments a resounding signal that cities, regions, and other civil society stakeholders are united in meeting the Paris goals and creating a more inclusive and resilient economy. One of the officially recognized entry points to the city's race to zero is ICLEI's climate neutrality framework. This was launched at our Daring Cities conference last year, where many of you joined us virtually as well. Through our climate neutrality framework, ICLEI aims to support local and regional governments to set a clear climate neutrality goal and to achieve this rapidly through a holistic and integrated approach to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and that leads to a wide range of co-benefits for sustainable development. This also aligns with ICLEI's overall strategy and our conception of sustainable development along our 5 integrated pathways. In this respect, I would like to use this opportunity to invite you to the ICLEI World Congress 2021-2022 in Malmö in Sweden, where all of our membership will convene to further discuss our joint strategic orientation and implementation for the upcoming 6 years. Due to the pandemic, our World Congress will consist of a virtual component conducted now in April 2021 and an in-person component in the inspiring city of Malmö in Sweden conducted in 2022. Beyond the city's Race to Zero campaign, ICLEI will also continue to raise the voices of cities and regions on the international negotiation stage. For example, by participating in the COP26 in Glasgow with a delegation of mayors to showcase ambitious climate action at the subnational level. Virtually or in person, we hope that the COP26 will set a focus on multi-level action that creates synergies across levels of government. I would like to thank you very much for your kind attention, and I hope you will gain many fruitful and inspirational insights and discussions out of today's event. Thank you very much, and warm greetings from Bonn.
好，非常谢谢 Mr. Gino。那么接下来我们要欢迎的是来自 CityNet 组织的秘书长 VJ Gignesm 来为我们致辞，同样来是线上的祝福。Let's welcome Secretary General of CityNet VJ Gignesm for opening remarks.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, and welcome from my side to all those who have come all the way from across the world for this Smart City Summit and Expo. On behalf of CityNet, which is a network of cities and partner agencies in the Asia-Pacific region, it gives me great pleasure to address the gathering. I apologize that I've not been able to join you physically because of the obvious reasons, but also because the timing was such that it's in the middle of the night for me, as I'm now located in the United States. But let me start by congratulating Taiwan City and ICDI for organizing this very important session, which in a way captures the kinds of challenges we are facing now that the COVID pandemic is slowly coming to an end. And we still have major challenges of trying to get the world to 1.5 degrees or below in terms of the global warming, if our entire global community is to survive into the next century. Now, the two themes which you are planning to discuss today are extremely important. And of course, for us in CityNet, these are exactly the kinds of areas where our members are now starting to figure out how to organize themselves and achieve the transitions. The first one about green transition and renewable energy is particularly important because many of our cities are ultimately, today at least, are dependent on fossil fuels for all the energy needs. And the big challenge is that with population growth and with economic development, how do they reduce their dependence on greenhouse gases and switch to green transitions, particularly with renewable energy being on the forefront. The second theme, which has to do with green transportation and freight, is also equally important because apart from the energy which is used for buildings and for all the other industrial activities in a city, we also have a huge amount of greenhouse gases being generated by the internal combustion engine, which drives our entire transport and freight fleet. And the good news is that now, as we have all read in the newspapers, a lot of in fact, all the major car manufacturers are committing to switch over to green transportation. And along with that, green freight also will automatically follow. But more importantly, the two themes are very much interlinked, because what we see is that when you go in for green transportation, you do automatically also create the business environment to have more renewable energy to charge the batteries. And as our cities have got a large number of buildings with rooftops, it also means that we could in fact have very exciting developments in terms of distributed generation of electricity. And that is something which is going to really transform our cities. And all these things are being made possible because now we have the benefit of what is called the fourth industrial revolution, with a huge amount of digital data being generated, and also with the Internet of Things, the ability to actually analyze the data and use artificial intelligence to come up with solutions which are much beyond the capability of us humans working as we did in the last century. So these are very exciting topics, and I'm sure you're going to have a very productive session. I wish you all very productive days in discussing these topics. And all of our CityNet members would be very much interested to learn about the conclusions and recommendations of the forum. And we do hope that we can benefit from your active engagement. And in particular, I'd like to thank Taiwan City and ICDI, who are both members of CityNet, and congratulate them on taking this very important topic up ahead. So with those few words, wishing you all the best, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say a few words.
谢谢 Mr. VJ。接下来我们会有来自现场连线的画面，我们要连线给 IGIS 组织的执行长 Yasuo Takahashi. Next, let's welcome the Executive Director of IGIS, Yasuo Takahashi, for opening remarks. He's from the online image. Please, thank you.
Thank you for your kind invitation. And I sincerely thank Taiwan City Government and ICDI for your kind invitation. First of all, I am very pleased to be speaking to you at the opening session of the Sustainable City Forum. This is a very important and timely event under current circumstances for two main reasons. The first is that we are facing two significant challenges, namely the COVID-19 pandemic and the global climate change. We know that sustainable recovery or green recovery from the pandemic is a critical, urgent matter. And this is all the more important for cities because they have been most seriously affected by COVID-19. Secondly, we are now seeing a global move toward a zero-carbon society, covering a broad range of stakeholders, including governments, cities, business, citizens, NGOs, cities playing a particularly critical role. You may remember that last October, Japan's Prime Minister Suga declared his commitment achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Despite being hit by the pandemic, we have seen that national and local governments, businesses, and many other stakeholders are all accelerating their efforts toward carbon neutrality by 2050. In fact, even before the declaration by the Prime Minister, many cities had already started initiatives toward zero carbon. As of March 19, there are 331 local governments in Japan, including Tokyo, Kyoto, and Yokohama, that have announced their commitment net zero carbon emission by 2050. This represents 105 million people, or 82% of Japan's population. We have seen that these significant initiatives by local governments in Japan play an important role to enhance awareness of the transition we need for the urbanized society. Last week, the Ministry of the Environment Japan hosted the Zero Carbon City International Forum with cooperation from UNFCCC, ICLEI, and IGIS. The meeting was very successful with participants from leading cities and organizations across the globe coming together to share ideas and actions to accelerate decarbonization under the current pandemic as well as after COVID-19. Let me take this opportunity to share the contribution made by IGES, the Institute for Global Environment Strategies, support for zero carbon cities. IGES provides support city-to-city cooperation between Tokyo Metropolitan Government and Kuala Lumpur City in Malaysia. Two city governments have joined forces to develop a new low-carbon system, the Tokyo to Kuala Lumpur's low-carbon system, that will be used in Kuala Lumpur. Tokyo has been helping Kuala Lumpur City Hall to build capacity to formulating and implementing policies by offering knowledge that considers specific interest, context and requirements so that Kuala Lumpur can promote energy efficiency and reduce CO2 emission in its own public buildings. Earlier this year, the city government in Jakarta stated its commitment to a new ambitious target to reduce its GHG emissions by 50% in 2030 and achieve net zero in 2050. I just began collaboration with the Institute of Technology Bandung in 2020 and aims to provide support for the development of a future low-carbon society scenario 2050. The first scenario document by local government in Indonesia. The scenario was used to review existing policy of climate change action plans, as well as looking to ensure the policy can be applied and implemented properly. With this kind of support for energy conservation and green building paradigm program in Jakarta, the city hopes to achieve its GHG emission reduction target in 2030 and 2050. IGES also provide total solutions through science-based research into concrete actions as part of the intervention program. This will encourage behavior changes in certain groups in the society, as well as developing low-carbon transport projects under the fuel conversion program for transport sector. This is carried out through the Joint Crediting Mechanism, or JCM programs, as part of city-to-city cooperation between Toyama City in Japan and Sunan City. I will now quickly revisit my first point, green recovery from COVID-19 pandemic. We at IGES are promoting that what we call the triple R framework, incorporating the concepts of respond, recover, and redesign. The first one, respond, means to adopt targeted interventions to address direct impacts as well as possible underlying causes. Recover means to reform broader policies and redirect fiscal stimulus focusing on sustainable, resilient policies and intervention investments. Finally, redesign aims to transport socio-economic systems as well as policy-making institutions as a way to break unsustainable lock-ins. This is the framework I just had come up with to deal with COVID-19 from a sustainable point of view. The Japanese government also launched an online platform for Redesign 2020 in September last year. This initiative was led by the Ministry of the Environment with support from the UNFCCC Secretariat and managed by IGES, based on the triple R framework I just mentioned. So how can we use this new triple R framework to ensure that cities build back better in the post-pandemic era? Basically, this new triple R framework states that we need to promote short-term response measures, medium-term recovery measures, and long-term design measures all together. And in this way, we can deal with similar crises better in the future. Cities have an important role to play via the location for transformative action and the transition process to create resilient urban systems. We must also make use of smart technologies, social innovations, and solutions to assist local policymakers in strengthening coherence and alignment within the post-COVID process of recovery and redesign. Close, let me reiterate my congratulations to the Sustainable City Forum 2021. I wish you a fruitful and successful meeting today. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Takahashi. Please stay online until the photo time. Next, let's welcome the Director of the Sustainable Infrastructure Policy and Project Preparation at EBRD。接下来我们要欢迎来自欧洲复兴开发银行永续建设政策处长 Matthew Jordan Tank 为我们来致辞。Please.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all those. I want to thank the organizers to invite EBRD to this very important meeting. I'd like to recognize the Taoyuan City Government, SC, SE, ICDI, ICLE, and ECCT as organizers and co-organizers. Thank you very, very much for inviting us again this year. I would like to compliment the excellent opening interventions by the fellow panelists with 3 comments on 3 different sub-themes. One is decarbonizing cities and the importance. A second is what I would call enlightened blended finance with donors. And third, partnerships in cities. So starting with decarbonizing cities, as has been said, cities are the place where most of global economic activity takes place. It's also the place where the majority of emissions happen. It's finally the place where most gains in quality of life can be had. We still know, and we still see that about 25% of all people in developing economies still live in informal settlements. They lack regular access to public services, clean water, sanitation, inadequate, unsafe transport options. There's so much more work to do. I want to focus on e-mobility, electric mobility, because I think that is crucial if we want to decarbonize and meet the Paris Agreement goals. What should government do and rather not do in this area? Let me give you my thoughts on this. I think what they need to do is to facilitate the planning, the regulatory, fiscal supports, but not actually install and operate the charging infrastructure that is so needed for individual electric vehicles and fleets. They should consult and work with private sector charge point operators, as they're called. These are private companies who are in the business of installing and in operating and maintaining through commercial agreements the charging infrastructure. We think that this is a much better way to go rather than directly installing and attempting to operate and maintain the charging system on their own as governments. We think that government should also allow private shared mobility services for electric vehicles to flourish. These go hand in hand with digital solutions, so it's smart and green. And we think this is really a hybrid solution between traditional public transport and individual transport. Finally, I think the conversion to e-buses is absolutely critical, but we need to do this in a way that overcomes the initial affordability gap, the initial capital cost difference between traditional solutions for bus services and green buses. And we think we can do this through a mechanism called public service contracting, a sort of 10-year, multi-year contract between government and the bus operators, whether they're public or private. And this is where what I call a green kilometer top-up payment can be made. And that can be made with donors. And that leads me to blended finance. Let me comment on blended finance. What we need, frankly, is more enlightened donors like Taiwan's ICDF. Taiwan ICDF just approved $55 million to EBRD for sustainable infrastructure and energy projects, the new Green Energy Special Fund. This is an excellent way to go because this goes beyond mere capital grants, which was sort of the traditional way of donors. We now see co-investment alongside an international financial institution and DFIs. This co-investment over the long term is really what is needed to forge this kind of future that we're seeking. This green PSC, public service contract, is just such an approach. The money from EBRD can be matched by the donor money over the long term and in an equal way help to make these investments be more affordable for developing countries and cities to adopt these kinds of new technologies which we absolutely need to forge this net zero future that we're seeking. So I would say that, there are many opportunities beyond electric mobility. If we do this, a word on the partnerships now. If we do this, we need to team up with the private sector. The infamous global infrastructure gap, really, it will be met in the majority of the resources will need to come from the private sector and long-term investors. Only about 10% of all infrastructure investment needs is coming from the IFIs, the DFIs, and the national development banks combined. The other 90% needs to come from somewhere else, and it won't be possible to do it with government investment. Governments are especially strained now because of COVID-19 effects. So the private sector has a crucial role to play. We think that the multilateral development banks will play a crucial role in project preparation and advisory, helping to be the link between what governments need and what the private sector wants to invest in for long-term stable returns in a fair and balanced manner. The MDBs can play that role to help prepare these projects and structure them in a balanced way. So finally, I would finish with a further comment on partnerships. EBRD firmly believes that local planning at the city level, what we call the Green City Action Plans for short, medium, and long-term investment priorities is the way to go. And the reason we feel so strongly is that we pride ourselves on having a deep commitment to local stakeholder engagement. And this kind of engagement is what fosters true support for these kinds of green investments that need to happen. I've seen in my 20+ years working for international financial institutions that when a project has true, deep local backing and support from local citizen groups, those projects will eventually be built. And that's the type of commitment we need and we're forging through our Green Cities program. We're at 50 cities today that are with us. ICLEI is a great partner for us and many others, so I want to recognize them. We can't do this alone, and we're pushing towards 100 cities by 2024. So I'll stop with that and thank the organizers once again for inviting me and EBRD to participate. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew. Please stay online until the photo time. 接下来我们要来拍摄今天论坛的大合照，我们要邀请贵宾陆续上台来。那在您的位置上面应该有一个板子，待会儿上来的时候呢，请记得带你的板子一起来。Let's invite everyone together to take a photo now. Let's welcome 我们来邀请的，首先是立法院的副院长蔡其昌蔡副院长，桃园市的副市长李宪明李副市长。麻烦到台前来，国际气候发展智库理事长林子伦林理事长，桃园市的副秘书长邱俊明副秘书长，欧洲商会的 Vice Chairman Grippy Petzo 尹荣副理事长，麻烦您上台来。法国在台协会主任公孙孟先生 Mr. Jean-François Casabon-Massonave， 德国在台协会的处长王子陶博士 Dr. Thomas Prince，please come to the stage。欧洲经贸办事处贸易政策组组长雍清龙博士 ，Dr. Thomas Jorgensen，please come to the stage。波兰台北办事处处长李波先生 ，Mr. Bartosz Hirsch。桃园市环保局局长吕礼德，吕局长。好，我们请各位贵宾来到台前，我们一起来拍摄一个大合照。We will take a photo together. Please see our cameraman on the front. 好，请贵宾看前面，大家都在捕捉重要的镜头。Cheese 啊，看不到，因为大家都戴口罩。要脱口罩吗？需要大家脱口罩拍照吗？好 ，Please take off your mask. We take a prettier photo without a mask. 好，这样 cheese 就看得到了。Say cheese. 好了吗？好，贵宾还要留步哦，因为接下来我们要邀请其他的贵宾陆续的上台来，一起再来拍摄照片。那么首先我们要邀请的是欧洲商会的这个执行长 Mr. Freddie Holland, CEO of the ECCT. Please come to the stage. 好，接下来呢，唱明道的贵宾，请您来到台前。Please come to the stage. Mr. Rolando Rudolfer, Mr. Paul Monstedt. Please come to the stage. Mr. Frederick Verheden, Mr. Tong Chai Chasawath, Mr. Tommy Kambu Kunji, Mrs. Stephanie Lee, Mr. Brent Moore, Mr. El Fadil Adam, please come to the stage. Mr. Frank Fassi,
是有一个人跑走了。
Mr. Milan Morak, Mr. Pascal Villard. 好，高雄市环保局张瑞浑局长，新竹市的交通处处长倪茂荣处长，台南市交通局的副局长熊万莹副座，还有伊克里 KCC 的蔡婉田主任，请您一起到台前来。 吴君婷主委也请您到台前跟我们一起合照。欧洲复兴开发银行的资深顾问杨雅文杨顾问，还有台湾科思创的这个台湾及东南亚区的业务处长陈敏生处长。好，非常多的贵宾在台前哦，我们要请大家稍等一下，我们请贵宾到齐了之后，我们要拍摄一个大合照。Please stick together. We will take a group photo. 可以。 Please take off the mask. Thank you. 后面的贵宾可能被挡到。好，今天非常多的贵宾共同来预祝我们今天的论坛顺利成功，请大家看前方，比一个赞好了。哎，可是大家有拿那个 ，Please stick your thumb. 可以吗？
哦，他看不到现场。
还有没有大哥还没有捕捉到珍贵画面的？还需要吗？好了 ，OK. Now please back to the seat because we will take a photo from the front stage. 我们请各位贵宾回座，我们待会要从上面拍一个全场的合照。 好，请小心您的脚步。We will take a group photo toward the front side, so please have your seat. Then our cameraman will come to the stage to take the all people can get together. 好，那我们先拍，可以了哈。好，我们先拍一个合照之后，我们再来换 pose。Show me your big thumb. Yes, wish our forum successful. Give me your thumb. Thank you. 好，我们摄影师大哥赶快捕捉。好，接下来我们请大家忍耐5秒钟，把口罩放下来。Please take off your mask. We take a prettier photos with your face. Yes. 可以吗？稍等一下。好了吗？ 好，谢谢 ，Thank you so much。 谢谢各位大家贵宾的配合。那么我们现在要先请这个蔡其章副院长还有李宪明副市长，我们要移步到场外，我们有媒体要为2位贵宾来进行这个专访哦。好。2021永续城市论坛，我们是由桃园市政府跟智慧城市论坛暨展览共同来举办的，是由国际气候发展智库来执行。在这边，我们要特别感谢 KCC 还有欧洲在台商会低碳倡议行动。许多的组织，大家共同努力，才能够让今年的论坛比过去的论坛，大家都看到非常多的贵宾与会，我们获得非常广泛的回响。我们希望永续发展的概念，不管是在公部门还是私领域当中，大家都能够共同的合作。而今天我们的论坛会有2个主题，接下来呢，我们紧接着就会开始进入我们的第1场专题演讲。我们第1场演讲的主题是绿色转型跟再生能源。为了要减缓气候的影响，我们各个城市在经济、科技跟商业领域当中，都要融入新的科技，来帮助城市来进行低碳的转型哦。那么整个绿色转型的范围是非常广泛的，不管是在建筑方面、交通方面、工业物流，其实我们都希望能够用崭新的科技、智慧的方式，来让城市能够减碳，同时完成永续发展的目标。那我们第1场的专题演讲，接下来我们就要邀请贵宾们来陆续的上台。首先，我们这第1场的主席是桃园市的邱俊明副秘书长，请主席上台。Let's welcome our first section. Next section will introduce successful cases of green transition and renewable energy. Please welcome Chairman Mr. 邱俊明。另外，我们这场论坛的主持人呢是国际气候发展智库的理事长林子伦。好。那么继续，我们要邀请我们第1场的这个讲者哦，我们的讲者 Mr. Jean-François Caspon-Masnave, Director of French Office in Taipei, please come to the stage to join our first forum. Dr. Thomas Prince, Director General of the German Institute Taipei, please. Dr. Thomas Jorgensen, Head of Trade Section of European Economical and Trade Office, please come to the stage. Mr. Bartosz Krysz, Head of the Polish Office in Taipei, and Mr. Joseph P. Iso, ECCT LCI Steering Committee MD Taiwan and the VP. 好，我们第1场的论坛呢，贵宾比较多一些，我们先请贵宾陆续的就座。邱秘书长有媒体正在对他进行联访当中，所以我们的主席还没就座，我们可能要稍等他一会儿。那由于这个秘书邱副秘可能不知道要多久，我们请林老师先开始，子伦老师先为我们开场，他去联访了。
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the. Thank you for including all of the participants. It's not just from Taiwan, all over the world. And this year was very special. So we not just have this face-to-face section right here in Taoyuan, and also we also have a virtual conference. So to also say hi to some participant is through the internet. So this section, we are trying to bring representatives from the public sector and also private sector to look into and also to share their experience about the green transition and also we call right now the green recovery about from the urban development perspective. We all know that we now face a multiple crises, not just the COVID-19, also the climate change, and also there's lots of very important issues. But within this sustainable development context, also I think many speakers in the opening section has mentioned urban actually played a critical role, because we now over 50% people now live in cities, and also city also consume over 80% energy and consume probably 70% of CO2 emissions. So the city will be a very important innovation test bed or test site. So it's important from this section, we want to bring your idea and experience, try to share what we can look forward, and also can share each other on this urban context. So I would like to introduce the section. I think we have already this, and we also missed one speaker. Okay. So I would like to first introduce and follow the program. The first speaker will be Gong Sun Meng, right? He's from the 法国在台协会主任. Yeah, let's welcome. Yep. And the second speaker was Wang Zitao, 德国在台协会处长. And the third speaker is Yong Qinglong, 欧洲经贸办事处贸易政策组组长. And the next speaker is Li Bo, from 波兰台北办事处代理处长. And the final speaker is in Rome, and the good friends, is 欧洲商会低碳倡议行动the directors. 好 Okay, so now we start from the Director Gong Sun Meng. So can you share with your idea and your view on the urban sustainable development and the green transition? Thank you.
Mesdames et messieurs, dear friends, dear colleagues, I am very pleased to attend this great event on Smart City organized today in the city of Taoyuan, as it gives me an opportunity to share with you some characteristics of the French model of smart cities. I will start my presentation by introducing the Banque des Territoires, Territorial Bank, which is one of the main channels in France to finance smart city projects. Then I will make a focus on green transition, which is one of the three components of France's economic recovery plan launched by the French government in September 2020, before giving example of what French companies are doing in this field in Taiwan. First, in order to help local projects, the Caisse des Dépôts, which is a public sector financial institution, launched a radical strategic, organizational and digital transformation process. As part of this, in 2018, it created the Banque des Territoires, Territorial Bank. As a unique gateway for local authorities, it provides customized consultancy, loan funding, and investment solutions tailored to their needs. From rural zones to metropolitan areas, the primary objective being to tackle social inequalities and territorial divide. All the experiments supported by the Smart City program incorporate one or more innovative dimensions: technological, social, economic, process-related, etc. Examples include the co-design of social housing building, with future residents involved in the design phase, or the creation of local services in a physical space and a digital space to bring closer together business and residents. The Banque des Territoires invests in innovative startups to support the transition towards territories that are more inclusive, sustainable, attractive, and connected. The Banque des Territoires has invested in startups like Cap Collectif, which is now a leading online platform for citizen participation. I would like also to mention the Territoire d'Innovation, Innovation Territories program operated by Banque des Territoires, which supports 24 selected territories and is addressing major development issues such as energy, mobility, agroecology, health, and digital technology. These projects will share a total envelope of 150 million euros worth of subsidies and also benefit from equity investment with a dedicated envelope of 300 million euros. Second, now I would like to come to the second point of my presentation, which is the green transition, priority of France's economic recovery plan launched by our government last September. First of all, France is aiming to achieve carbon neutrality in 2050. To reach this goal and bolster France's appeal and global leadership in respect of climate and environment-related issues, the French Economic Recovery Plan contains 30 billion euro in measures to support business in striving for a greener and more sustainable economy, which come on top of other recent sustainable financing and climate action initiatives. The National Low Carbon Strategy sets out France's pathway to achieving carbon neutrality by 2050, in line with the country's COP21 commitments. For industry, the strategy represents 81% drop in emissions by 2050, compared to 2015 levels. To help reduce the carbon intensity of industrial facilities, the French Environment and Energy Management Agency, ADEME, has issued a number of calls for projects, and others with similar scopes will be launched in 2021 and 2022. France's recovery plan also supports expansion of the strategic green hydrogen sector by allocating 7 billion by 2030, 2 billion between now and 2022 in investment in this area. From early 2021 and over 2 years, 6 billion euro will be set aside for the energy retrofitting of public and private buildings. In addition, the improvement of public transportation, the drafting of a bicycle plan and assistance for purchasing clean vehicles will receive 1.2 billion euro and 1.9 billion euro respectively under the recovery plan from calls for projects and car scrapping bonuses, which is called in French prime à la conversion. As you know, over 20% of France's electricity is currently produced by nuclear reactors, but our energy transition law, Loi de transition énergétique pour la croissance verte, which dated from 2015, mandates that nuclear energy should be cut to 50% of electricity by 2035. And the Energy Climate Law, promulgated in 2019, schedules the shutdown of electricity production from coal in 2022, next year. Renewables have been steadily increasing in France's electricity mix. Our total installed capacity in December 2019 was about 54 gigawatts. To conclude, I would like to underline how French companies participate in smart city development in Taiwan. For instance, Unabiz is using IoT to provide smart gas meters and smart parking technology to Taiwanese municipalities, and not only in Taiwan, by the way. We do have also very dynamic players as Schneider, involved in energy management, and Suez and Veolia in environment solutions in all main cities in Taiwan. Thales and Alstom are leading the way in Taiwan signaling technology for urban transport, and Ciel-et-Terre has reinforced its leadership in floating solar farms in Taiwan in 2020. Last but not least, last week I was in Tainan with the French group Air Liquide and its Taiwanese partner Far Eastern Group for the inaugural ceremony of a very high purity hydrogen plant, which will produce hydrogen by electrolysis without CO2 emission for the local semiconductor industry. In the field of renewable, the French banks, Société Générale, BNP Paribas, etc., are today the leading players in green finance in Taiwan. These examples remind us that France and Taiwan can be successful together in developing smart cities technologies and know-how and fighting at the same time negative impacts of climate change. This successful project should lead the way to many others in the future. And for the last words, I would say that the challenge of smart cities, as we know, stands on 3 legs: economic efficiency, environmental sustainability, and improvement for everyday life for every citizen. And this 3rd leg is maybe the most important because, as we know, in a smart city, we need the whole population to be the part of it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for sharing us your view about how the green transition also increase the renewable energy, although introduction the green hydrogen. That will be very quite interesting. So next speaker will be Dr. Thomas Prince. So share with your experience and perspective from Germany. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I prepared a presentation. I do not know if that is on the screen. Okay, can everybody see that, or? I mean, I know the slides, but okay, they can see it. Okay, I was asked to say a few words about the energy transition in Germany. Next slide, please. Just want to say where we are, what the challenges are. Next slide. Next. So, okay. At the moment, you see the blue color, that is renewable energy generation in Germany, around 45% at the moment. That's quite a lot for economy which is highly industrialized and needs a lot of energy. This success in renewable energy came with a high price. Next slide. So here you see the electricity price per 1 kilowatt hour in Germany. That is by far the highest. You see next to it on the right, Italy, then France, the United States, and then Taiwan. The high price in Germany is due to the subsidies we paid for the generation of renewable energy. This slide here, I think this is today my most important slide, because this price sends a lot of signals. Today I spent my lunch break in a 5-star hotel and the gym in Taipei. The room was maybe half the size like that. The temperature was, I would say it was field 15 degrees, maybe it was 16 or 17. I was the only guest there, and the whole day they have probably 3 or 4 guests going to this gym. What is the need for cooling a room down to 15 degrees? You can do that only if you have an energy price like Taiwan has it. If you have an energy price like we have it in Germany, you can't afford that. The general manager would say, what nonsense is that? We have to reduce the cooling and so on, and we have to invest in insulation. So the price sends a lot of signals. I don't want to say that our price is good. It depends always on the situation where your industry is in. So a lot of energy-intensive industries in Germany, they think that producing in other countries with a cheaper price is better. But for changing from old energy generation to renewables, a high price is the best you can have. Next slide, please. So, I've been talking now about this one part, energy production, which is only a small part of the CO2 emissions. In energy production, we are quite successful with renewables. In the other parts, we are not as successful, but we have to have success in all of these different parts of our CO2 emissions to be successful in general. Next slide, please. So, I think it's important to have a price on CO2 emissions. We have introduced that in Germany in a national scheme this year. It starts with, I think, €5 per ton, and it increases annually to 25 euros in 2025. So consumption of energy will become more expensive, and people who behave in a way that they consume less energy will be rewarded. Next slide, please. Traffic is definitely one part of the change to less CO2 emissions. We have huge programs to convince people to buy electric cars. We have now 570,000 on the market. We are number 3 worldwide. And here I would like also to draw another parallel to Taiwan. Taiwan is a perfect country for electric vehicles. You can reach, with the normal electric vehicles, you can reach from Taipei, every city down to Pingtung, with one battery load. Gogoro has shown that it is possible to have a countrywide system of loading stations here. Actually, it's difficult to understand why there are still combustion engines running here. My personal feeling is there could be done much more to make this country the first country in the world where combustion engines are history. Next slide. Housing. I live in an apartment in Nangang. When I heat it up in winter to 20 degrees and switch off the heating, we are down to 70 degrees within 10 minutes. Insulation, 0. The same as with, I cool it down in summer to 20 degrees, I switch the AC off, I'm up to 25 within 10 minutes. Housing is extremely important to save energy. Here in Taiwan, there was up until now hardly any focus on housing and insulation, saving energy and energy efficiency. Next slide. I think we can skip that. That is about nuclear power stations in Germany. 6 are still there. We are going to shut them down till 22. Next slide. The problem with this, we do not know where to take the waste to. And at the moment, the waste is stored in an old iron ore mine, and the government is trying to find a final location. If I would have to make a forecast, I would say they will never find one. They will never find one, because nobody wants to have such a poisonous material in his neighborhood. So it will be always intermediate location, which will go on and on and on for the next 10, 100,000 years. Next slide. And I say that here because Taiwan is in a similar situation. You store your waste at the moment inside the 4 plants, and there is still also no idea what to do with this toxic waste. The wind energy challenges, we know all, it's a problem of storage, but there are technical solutions like hydrogen. A lot of governments come up with hydrogen strategies. I think I don't have to go into detail. Next slide. Next slide, please. One word to wind energy, because there are also parallels to Taiwan. Wind energy in Germany, from the first idea till the turbine is running, takes 5 years. Next slide, please. Oh no, sorry, go back one. So 5 years, only if everything goes smoothly, but never everything goes smoothly. It's always a problem. Nobody wants to have a windmill next to his house, next to its village, and so on. Therefore, this whole process usually takes much longer than 5 years. We have learned some lessons out of that and have now introduced for certain projects of strategical importance accelerated way of going through all these processes to get the results easier and quicker. And I see parallels here in Taiwan. You have also a very sophisticated bureaucracy as we have it. You are a democracy as we have it. The citizens have their rights to question the government action, and that all leads to long processes. Also, I think that Taiwan has to think about how to shorten these processes. What we see, for instance, civil aviation in the Taoyuan wind field had a practical veto right. We have similar problems now in other fields. I think it's important to come up with an idea of how to overcome that, to have a one-stop shop and to accelerate the process. So these are a few lessons learned from Germany, and maybe we can go deeper in that in our discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Prince. I fully agree with what you mentioned about the electricity price. I just spoke with the representative from Denmark about the low, I think, low price of the electricity price in Taiwan. I think it affects a lot about lots of energy decisions. And also, I think the EV, also electric vehicle, also is promising, not just manufacturing. I think we need to have more implementation about the usage, not just manufacturing, because right now it's focused more on manufacturing rather than just the usage. So we need lots of design and mechanism to put this into in the practice. So thank you for sharing about your view. And next we will move on to Dr. Thomas Jorgensen from the head of the trade section of the European Economic and Trade Office.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the organizers for inviting me, and good afternoon to everyone. How dare you? This sounds uncomfortable, but these were the words from Greta Thunberg, a climate change fighter, 15-year-old girl, in 2019 at the UN summit in New York. And she confronted the leaders of the world with their inaction on climate change. How dare you? It was very uncomfortable. I watched it again before I came here. It's worthwhile watching it. Climate change is a major topic in Europe and in the world. And we see it every day, weather caprioles, heat waves, floods, hurricanes, more often and more violent. And we should dare to do something. And in my presentation, I will set out what we do at the European level as a framework. If this works. So this is the key word from a European strategy, sustainability. This is the heart of what we are doing. And Europe has set itself the goal to be the first climate neutral continent by 2050 by achieving zero emissions on greenhouse gases. And on this path, we just recently raised our ambitions. Originally by 2030, a reduction by 40%, to now at least 50%, 55% compared to the 1990 level. And this has been inscribed in the European climate law. And why do we do this? Because at the European level, we try to set the targets and then we leave it to the stakeholders to achieve their targets, and where we can, we also help. In our view, these measures or this target will spur new investments, new services, and new innovations. One critical measure or one critical topic for this measure to achieve is what we call the European Green Deal. The European Green Deal is one of the flagship programs of the current European Commission, and it tries to achieve sustainable growth and just transition. And it includes several key initiatives which I will set out during this presentation. One very important feature or background of this European Green Deal is that we have noticed that there is no contradiction between economic growth and reduction of carbon emissions. For instance, between 1990 and 2019, we cut carbon emissions in Europe by 23%, while economic growth went up by 60%. So we have to keep this in mind while we are talking about transition and while we are talking about carbon reductions. Actually, the cost of inaction in the long run may be much higher than the cost of action. We also see, and Thomas has set it out, prices for renewable energy are going down and new innovations are coming online, and all of this will help to reduce the costs of the energy transition and the carbon transition. Of course, we need money for doing that. The European Green Deal has the objective to mobilize €1 trillion, and we have heard from Jonathan from the EBRD that private money will be key for achieving that. The public funds can incentivize and give help to create new investments, but at the end of the day, it has the private sector who has to shoulder the bulk of the investments. But the public finance, and I think that is the general experience that we make, needs to lead the way. And then the private money will scale up that envelope. As part of the European Green Deal, one important issue is what we also call the Justice Transition Mechanism. The Justice Transition Mechanism is basically trying to make sure that nobody is left behind. Every change in every society creates winners and losers, we know this, and very often we rather look at the losers or at the winners and we forget about the losers. And this Justice Transition Mechanism is helping there, for instance, re-educating the workforce. If you have a coal power plant worker and now he has to move to renewable offshore wind, that's a different job description. So we have to help these people also to find new jobs and to find new opportunities. And that applies equally for industries. We talk about people, but also industries. We have in Europe many coal power plants again, and big utilities, also nuclear, and they have to develop new business models. And this money that we put into the European Green Deal is trying to achieve that objective. When it comes to urban development in the European Union, we all know that, we heard it also in the introduction, that cities are key for reducing carbon emissions. 75% of the EU's population live in cities, which also means that they are creating the most greenhouse gas emissions. So if we want to address climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, we have to bring in the cities. In Europe, we have established what we call an urban agenda for the EU. The urban agenda is a policy initiative that basically tries to bring in local and federal stakeholders, in particular by strengthening cities' ownership. So they have identified certain areas that are important, like energy transition, digital transition, urban mobility, and this plan tries to bring in a stakeholder, offering a platform for stakeholders to work together on a common objective and to find common solutions. So it's a multi-level partnership which we try to facilitate. One, which I think is very interesting, particular issue is At European level, we also try to foster competition amongst cities by the European Green Capital Award. So we basically invite cities to submit their European, or they'll say their green credentials, and then once a year the Green Capital Award is given to one city. In 2020 it was Lisbon. Lisbon has a very ambitious program, in particular of land use, urban mobility and green growth. For instance, they have established one of the world's largest electric vehicle charging point networks with 516 points citywide. So by this mechanism, we hope also to generate new ideas for other cities to follow and leading by example. This is the green capital. You should go to Lisbon, it's a beautiful city. Let's talk a little bit about the key initiatives that from a European level, macro level, we try to support. One obvious is the renewable energy strategy. This is, from a European perspective, a very, very important initiative, not only because we have all the natural facilities and locations to produce renewable energy. I think what is equally important is that some member states have very good locations, like for instance Denmark or Belgium, but others also are big consumers, and they are not so much into renewable energy, offshore wind, like Austria for that matter. So what we need on a European level is a grid connection that helps to transport the renewable energy that we generate by offshore wind to the south. And of course, offshore wind is not the only one, but it's probably the most efficient one and the most effective one that we see in the world and also in the region. What is interesting is that the prediction is that by moving to offshore wind, we will create 450,000 jobs by 2030, and we expect that this will generate around 37 billion euros for the EU's GDP yearly. Then the second initiative that we support at the European level, and it has been mentioned here, is the energy system integration strategy. It sounds a very clumsy word, but actually what we are trying to achieve with this is to help the electrification of urban mobility or island mobility. We would also support electrification in Taiwan, probably. So basically, this is a technology that is developing. It is probably at this stage rather expensive. Prices will go down. But there are some public initiatives that need to be helped. And it's not only about money. When we talk, for instance, about charging stations, that needs to be helped. And I think at the European level, we have not only now trying to mobilize battery alliances, there is some interesting projects there on the industrial level, but also on the consumer level. Then, that has also been mentioned, the renovation wave. It's true, I have been here in Taiwan for 3.5 years, and I'm always struck by the low level of isolation in buildings. And it's cold in winter, it's hot in summer. You always need energy to bring it down to the temperature that you like. But you lose endless energy for achieving that objective simply because the buildings are not equipped. When you look at the windows here, when you look at the walls, isolation, it's basically nothing. And in Belgium, for instance, I remember there was a subsidy scheme that basically helped to replace windows to make it more energy efficient, which was very, very successful because it's probably psychology. Sometimes people see more the subsidy that they get, even if they have to put in their own money. So in Europe, we have this objective to modernize 35 million inefficient buildings by 2030, which will also create new jobs, and we also put money into this. And this is probably my last slide, and it concerns global cooperation. Climate change is by definition a global phenomenon, so we have to work together. And we actually quite appreciate the opportunity to work with Taiwan on these matters. Taiwan has been very fast on moving on renewable energy in the offshore wind sector and on photovoltaic. And we support this, and I think we can also see what Taiwan is doing, and we're offering our expertise to help Taiwan to achieve its objective. We are stronger together, that is basically the motto. As I mentioned, sustainability is the key word here. We have certain initiatives to achieve this, and of course we very much also work with our member states to do this. In Europe, we have a saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. Basically, it means crisis also offers opportunities. And I think we are all in this together, and we all have to use these opportunities to fight climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there's several areas we can collaborate, including just you mentioned offshore wind and renewable energy, and also I think several speakers also mentioned about building in the city. I think about installation, it's actually a challenge and problems. I think there's a lot space to improve in that area, and so thank you for bringing the just transition mechanism within the European Green Deal. I think in the urban development context, it also is a quite important perspective. So thank you for bringing that to the audience. So next speaker will be Mr. Bartos Raz. He's the acting head of a Polish office in Taipei.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much for inviting me today and giving me this opportunity. Today I would like to speak about the green transition and renewable energy in Poland. I believe Poland and Taiwan, when it comes to green energy transition, have a lot of similarities. Both Poland and Taiwan are trying to move away from the so-called dirty sources of energy, such as coal, and develop green energy, renewable energy. So I hope that the Polish experience in this matter, Polish plans that I'm going to present, will be useful also for Taiwan. So to give you a glimpse of the current situation in Poland and the challenges that Poland is facing in green transition and developing renewable energy, Poland is heavily reliant on, at the moment, is heavily reliant on coal. 70% of the energy source comes from the coal, followed by 18% from renewable energy and 10% from the natural gas. So as you can see, this of course have to do with the fact that Poland historically had a huge deposits of coal. So naturally, it was our primary source of energy. However, there is an awareness of Poland that this cannot be for long. Poland is currently undergoing green transition and developing the renewable sources of energy. So we are currently undergoing restructuring of our energy supply. So in 2019, this is a comparison of the sources of electricity in 2020, comparing to 2019. So as you can see on this chart, the total energy consumption in 2020, comparing to 2019, dropped by 3.5 terawatt hours. This, of course, have to do with the COVID-19, since a lot of businesses, a lot of industries were closed down, so obviously they consume less energy. But the overall trend is to decrease the use of hard coal and lignite as a source of electricity, and increase of gas and renewable sources of energy. So as you can see, in 2020, 7.2 terawatt hours less were derived from the hard coal, whereas the role, the significance of gas and renewable energy as a source of electricity has actually risen by 2 and 2.8 terawatt hours. This is EU climate targets. I think Thomas already mentioned about it. This is a framework for the legal framework from the green transition in Poland. In 2014, the European Council approved 4 targets for the 2030 perspective for the entire European Union. The targets were revised in 2018 and in 2020. The targets are the binding obligation for all the EU member states, so all the EU member states must comply. There are 4 main targets set by the European Council. First of all is the reduction of greenhouse gas emission by at least 55% compared to 1990 emissions. Secondly, at least a 32% share of renewable energy sources in the gross final energy consumption by 2030, increase in energy efficiency by 32.5%, and completion of the EU internal energy market. The ultimate goal of the EU is to make EU climate neutral by 2050. In line with this framework, 2nd February 2021, so quite recently, Polish government adopted the energy policy of Poland until 2040, the so-called EPP 2040. So right now, I would like to tell you a few words about what this energy policy is about, what are the main concepts. The EPP 2040 is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is just transition. It's actually what Thomas mentioned before in his presentation. The second pillar is the zero emission energy system. And the third pillar is the good air quality. Let me tell you a few words about the first pillar, just transition. As I said before, Poland is heavily reliant on coal. There are regions of Poland that are heavily dependent on coal and coal-related businesses. So, as not to leave some people behind, as Thomas said, the transformation, some people would be negatively affected. So the just transition is to provide new opportunities for development to regions and communities that can be negatively affected by the low-carbon energy transition. It's also about reduction of energy poverty. A lot of private households in Poland have limited access to effective and ecological heat. So the idea of just transition is to make sure that there will be widespread turbo-modernization of residential buildings and ensuring effective and ecological access to heat. And thirdly, development of new industries related to renewable energy and nuclear energy. So the goal is to create up to 300,000 new jobs in high potential industries, such as renewable energy, nuclear energy, electromobility, network infrastructure, digitization, thermal modernization of buildings, and other related industries. The funds allocated by the EU for the just transition are estimated, for Poland, are estimated to be around 3.5 billion euro. And the main, as I said before, the main goal of the just transition is to support the transformation of the coal-dependent regions and make sure that no one is left behind. The second pillar of the Polish energy policy is to ensure the zero-emission energy system by 2040. To achieve this, Polish government is determined to develop 3 sources of energy. First of all is offshore wind energy, secondly nuclear energy, and also local and civic energy. I would tell you later what is the local and civic energy about. When it comes to the offshore wind power plants, we already have quite a significant number of onshore wind power plants in Poland. However, in the next 20 years, the emphasis would be put on development of offshore wind power plants. Poland has a quite long coastline, Baltic Sea, around 300-400 kilometers, so there are good conditions for installation of wind power plants. The target foreseen by the Polish energy policy is to install output capacity of 5.9 gigawatts by 2030 and 11 gigawatts by 2040. The second method of achieving zero emission policy is to develop the Polish nuclear power program. I know this is a little bit controversial in Taiwan because Taiwan is currently phasing out nuclear power plants, especially since there was a catastrophe in Fukushima in Japan in 2011. However, in Poland and also in many other countries, not only in Europe but the whole world, the nuclear power is still considered to be relatively safe. Also, important factor is that in Poland we don't have to deal with the natural disasters, such as earthquakes or tsunami, so basically, I think the situation is a bit different than in Taiwan. Currently, there are no nuclear power plants in Poland. However, according to the government plan, the first nuclear power unit with a capacity of 1 to 1.6 gigawatts will be launched in 2033. And totally, we plan to launch 6 units by 2043. The currently used technologies of generation third and third plus, as well as stringent global standards in the field of nuclear safety, will ensure high safety standards for nuclear power plant operation and waste storage. And the third method of achieving zero emission energy mix is by development of local and civic energy. This happens mostly through subsidies for households for installing photovoltaic panels. So the planned output capacity is between 5 to 7 gigawatts in 2030 and 10 to 16 gigawatts in 2040. So even currently, if you go to Poland, you would see a lot of photovoltaic panels on the rooftops of individual households. This is because this is related to the subsidies that are provided by the Polish government. And the third pillar of the energy policy is good air quality. We are currently facing problems with the air quality in Poland is not the best. I would say it's roughly speaking similar to Taiwan. And there is a growing awareness in Polish society that this needs to change. The clean air is very important feature of the lifestyle. So there are three methods of achieving good air quality in Poland. First of all, by heating transformation. Still, a lot of households in Poland they use coal to provide heating, because obviously this has been the cheapest source of heat. However, we are entering the phase of heating transformation and increase the importance of other sources of heat, such as biomass, biogas, geothermal energy, and district heating, and also heat pumps in individual heating. This is becoming quite popular now. Secondly, good air quality can be achieved through transport electrification. That is development of low-emission transport, in particular aiming at zero-emission public transport by 2030 in the cities of over 100,000 residents. Also, increase the use of advanced biofuels, electricity in transport. So Poland currently is the EU leader when it comes to production of batteries for electric vehicles. The number of electric vehicles in Poland is steadily growing. This is also a very important part of the good air quality program. And the third feature of the good air quality is so-called House with Climate. This is about development of climate-friendly houses that are equipped with solar energy panels, heated with an ecological heat source, such as heat pumps, and collect rainwater from the entire property. To achieve good air quality, there's been a clean air program with a total budget of around 22.4 billion euro. So the idea of the clean air program is to move away from burning coal in households, in cities by 2030, and in rural areas by 2040, as well as maintaining the possibility of using smokeless fuel as an intermediary source of heat until 2040. Also, co-financing the cost of the replacement of old heating system, increasing the energy efficiency of building, as well as low emission direction of transformation of individual sources of heating, such as heat pumps or electric heating. So I would stop my presentation. I would end my presentation here. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions, please, you can ask me during the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
But Mr. Bartos Rice is sharing us about Poland's the new initiative, Energy 2040. So now we move on to the next speaker is in Rome, from the ECCT Low Emission Initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see today many friends in this room, so I should not make this presentation. Okay, you all know what ECCT is about, and you also know what the LCI is about. However, I will try to make the long story short so that we can catch up with some time, seeing that we are a little bit late. So when I make presentations in my company, in town halls, we have pretty much similar setup as this one, and the people in the back are not able to see what I present. So I have to tell them the story. So I will try to tell you the story as well today. Okay, so first of all, ECCT is an organization Can you teach me how to? Okay. So it's an organization that is 100% independent and privately funded, so by our members. In 2013, we changed the T from Taipei to Taiwan, so it's the only foreign nationwide business association, and that's the second oldest European chamber in the world. The oldest one is in Manila, in the Philippines. So we have, it was, as I said, funded 32 years ago, and with 50 members. Today we have about 400 corporations in the membership, with 925 individual members. We have about 29 committees plus one platform called Low Carbon Initiative that I will be zooming on in the next few slides. So the LCI structure primarily is working on with three groups, 6 areas that go from green energy, green financing, combined together in green finance, environmental, social governance, and corporate PPA group. This corresponds to the SDGs of, let me see, because I cannot see. You imagine, if I cannot see, you imagine if you can see from the back of the room. Also, I cannot see from the paper, so sorry about my side. So, corresponding to two SDGs, number 7, number 13. Then we have green mobility and smart cities, grouped into eco-mobility and eco-logistics, corresponding to other two SDGs, 9 and 11, and smart manufacturing, circular economy, grouped into the sustainable supply chain working group, corresponding to the number 2 and number 12 SDGs. We have 73 members in the platform. It's an impressive number of companies. We started this organization in the year 2012, and with 4 companies. Along the time, we have been able to enroll other 69 organizations, among which we have also several representative offices from Germany, from France, from Italy, Switzerland, and a few others, British. And with this, all these companies and with all these institutions, we promote the green energies, the sustainable technologies. We try to promote at central government level in Taiwan, but also as we are doing today at city level. We have intensive interactions with city governments across the island in Taiwan. Here we are going to introduce the 2021 Eco-Mobility and Eco-Logistics report. We periodically issue significant reports that gather major technologies from our selected members. For this year, 2021, we have 4 companies that are actively engaged in the green transition and renewable energy and are sharing their best practices. One is Air Liquide, one is Carrefour, another one Covestro, and the last one IKEA. I believe that today in this room there are the representatives from all these companies. I see my friend Olivier from Air Liquide, the president and CEO. I see the friend from Covestro, and so I believe if you have any specific need for any specific information in the networking period after these presentations, we may ask them exactly or more in details what we need to know. But just to give you an idea, Air Liquide was introduced also by Ambassador Casabon right before. That's making steps into the hydrogen, significant steps, especially here in Taiwan, directly and with joint venture in Tainan and in Taoyuan. And so hydrogen is a new development in the area of energy generation that comes with a lot of interesting promises, not at this moment able to address all the applications, but definitely in the industrial domain and in the heavy transportation, it is definitely to be one of the viable alternatives to today's fossil fuels. And the next one is the Carrefour. I don't know if there is any Carrefour member here, but I am one of their top customers, so I spend considerable amount of time at Carrefour the weekends, so I am very familiar with their initiatives, and it's a very important, significant company in the food and beverage, and not only, so very much sensitive to changes in the, not only in energy, but in social in the social domain. So they are obviously addressing the eco-logistics, low-carbon transportation, sustainability, also collection of rainwater, solar panels. So are all initiatives that they are putting in place, especially here in Taiwan. Then we have Covestro. I am also with Ambassador Prince here, okay, biker, right? So therefore we understand what is the importance of having an airfoam bicycle, right? Right? Bicycle with airfoam wheels, okay, that are recyclable, and we welcome Covestro for this very interesting initiative, especially here in Taiwan, that is the kingdom of the bicycle industry and the global leader in bicycle making. Finally, IKEA. IKEA is obviously, we all know, it's in a different business from the previous three, but from supplier to shop, from shop to customers. So they are trying to optimize their CO2 impact in this last mile, let's say, delivery in Taiwan. So these are the best practices put in place by our member companies, but there are a lot of other initiatives. As I said, we have 73 companies. For example, my company in semiconductors is part of this. We try to make solutions that try to help people realize systems, electronic systems with low energy impact. I can tell you that one of the things happening today in the world is that the internet accounts for 1% of the worldwide energy consumption. So we are talking about terawatts of energy dissipated, okay, by the single push of a button on a mobile phone. Okay, so that is something that we that operate in the electronic industry have to take into primary view. And the blockchain world has not started yet, so that will be even bigger as an impact on the life of people when we talk about energy consumption. So these are other situations that are being addressed by many other companies except the four that I have presented so far. So in conclusion, the European companies are committed to and actively engaged in the transition to renewable energy and the circular economy, to the greening of the supply chain, and obviously trying to make logistics smarter and sustainable. So this is my long story made short. I hope in the back of the room you have got it. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, for sharing your experience about ECC is doing about the low carbon initiative. So now our last speaker will be from Deputy Secretary General of Taoyuan. He will share us what's his perspective and about what he's doing now in Taoyuan.
好，我想这一节呢，我们真的
It is a rare opportunity for us to have the speakers from France, Germany, the European Union, about Poland, ECCT, for sharing with us their experiences in Taoyuan. Around 6 years ago, we actually enacted the Green City self-governance guidelines. And actually, in 2019, Taoyuan was awarded top award by ICF last year among the 20 cities in the world. We were also recognized by our efforts in committing to more SDGs. In Taoyuan, we have well-developed bike shared system. We have the highest numbers of the e-scooters in Taiwan and also the e-buses. We also use a lot of green energies on buildings. We have the photovoltaic. The public buildings are all green buildings and the smart buildings in Taoyuan. So in every part of our life, we are committed to low carbon society. So many years down, still there's a lot for us to do. Many speakers talked about the low electricity price in Taiwan. I think what we need to work on is to educate the general public. We should invite citizens to take part in the decision-making process. We actually did that for our long-term care policy. We also need to do that by inviting general public to take part in our decision-making in our sustainable city decision. To raise the awareness so that we can have better communication with our citizens. This is something we need to make improvement. I have learned so much from the speakers, and we will bring back what we learned back to our office, and we will continue to communicate with ECCT and also other speakers for further collaboration in the future. Thank you very much for your input. Thank you.
He's mentioned that actually right now in the way of energy transition, in not just industrial transformation, also just digital transformation, we also need public communication, because this actually we also need to take into consideration the social transformation, just like the EU, the just transition. So we should put all this together. So the public dialogue and also stakeholder engagement is very important. Now, so this panel will bring the public official and also private sector. Now we work together, but now we need to take all this idea into action. You have a lot of already have a lot of showcase now, so we need to try to strengthen our collaboration about Europe and Taiwan and try to put all these ideas into practice. I think Taoyuan has done the move already in the right direction. So, because without further ado, I need to close the section. So thank you again for this distinguished speaker, and also give a warm applause to this wonderful panel. Thank you.
Thank you for the precious sharing for all the speakers. And now we have a group photo time. So please move forward to the front of the stage. We are going to take a group photo. 我们要拍一个集体照，所以请我们的贵宾往前移动一下。Just step forward, yes, in the front of the stage. 我们的摄影大哥可以，我们第一场 section 的这个团体照，现在跟大家来拍个合照。So we thanks again for the precious sharing for the other guests. We are going to have a short break, only 5 minutes, because our procedure a little bit postponed already. So just have a short break. Please enjoy your coffee or tea outside. If you need the restroom, it's the left-hand side. Thank you. 我们稍微短暂的休息一下，大概5分钟的时间，希望大家掌握时间。那外头有一些饮料跟点心可以享用，洗手间在左手边，如果需要的朋友可以掌握时间。那尽快的，我们就待会儿赶快回到现场，我们还有第2场的论坛紧接着要进行。谢谢大家。 我们的第2场论坛即将开始了，希望各位的贵宾尽快的就座。Our second section is going to begin soon. Please come back to our seats, please. 好，意犹未尽的贵宾们，我们待会儿第2场结束之后会有交流的时间，请各位贵宾尽快就座。我们即将开始我们的第2场的专题演讲。我们第2场专题演讲的主题是生态交通跟生态物流，我们立刻就要展开，请贵宾们先就座。还没。那我先 Q 好。The second section now we are going to begin. 我们的第2场的专题演讲现在开始，我们要邀请我们在这一场的主席、主持人以及讲者。首先，我们的主席依旧要麻烦桃园市的邱俊明副秘书长。那么这一场的主持人是国际气候发展智库的赵公岳执行长。同时，我们邀请我们的讲者来上台，桃园市环保局的吕礼德局长，以及 Mr. Pascal Viard, Ambassador of the Grenoble Alps Metropole France， 还有我们的台湾科思创的陈敏生处长 Eddie Chan Covestro, please come to the stage。那把主持棒交给我们的主持人。
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think I know we have served a very, very good coffee break dessert there, but now our second session is beginning. Okay, so well, thank you for the all participants to attend our Sustainable City Forum 2021, and in fact, this is the 5th Sustainable City Forum, and as our session chairs from the first session said, it's going to bigger and bigger every year. So for this year, we talk about the sustainable recovery, our green recovery. But on this session, the second session, we're going to focus on more on this eco-mobility and eco-logistics. So as we know that for the transportation actually occupy very high percentage of carbon emission. And for maybe some of you may know, not only for the transportation or mobility part, in fact, the logistics actually is also produce a lot of carbon emission. So in this last year, Taoyuan invited by Italy to serve the chair of the global eco-logistics community, and also establish a project office to provide experience sharing index and also some successful stories for the eco-logistics for the global community. So for this session, we invite the CEO of this project office, Mr. Chou Junmin, here as our session chair. And also we have some speakers from these topics we have Dr. Lü Lide from EPA Taoyuan. Dr. Lü Lide will present the experience from Taoyuan. And also we have online our guest from the Saudi Arabia. He will join us online. Mr. Mohammed, and he is the project leader for the autonomous vehicle in Saudi Arabia. And also we have Mr. Pascal Vert here, and will join us to share some experience from France. And also we have the manager from IGES, Sudamento, join online, and in fact, he is the first author of AR6 from IPCC for transportation part. Okay, and we will have the Pixie manager from Montreal to share their experience for the bike. And also we will have Covestro manager, Dr. Chen Mingsen, which is the biggest TPU company in the world. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to invite the first speaker, Dr. Lü Lide, to share the experience from Taoyuan. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much. I have prepared PowerPoint slides. Taoyuan Eco Logistics Sustainable City Forum. Next slide. Taoyuan is a hub. I will talk about eco-logistics. 5 pilot zones in this area. Today, I will only talk about one, that's the Daxi eco-logistics site. Taoyuan has 32 industrial parks. We have around 1/3 of the top 500 manufacturers located in Taoyuan. The production value reached 3 trillion. This is the largest among the 22 cities and counties in Taiwan. The average age of Taoyuan citizens is 37.5 years old. So we are the youngest city in Taiwan. In Taoyuan, we also have 17 universities and colleges. I used to work at National Central University that is also located in Taiwan, in Taoyuan. In 2019, Taoyuan City signed with INCLAY to become the chair of International Eco-Logistic Communities. We also set up a dedicated office for eco-logistics in January 2020. Taiwan has around 2,000 logistics operators. 1,600 of them are situated in Taoyuan. So Taoyuan is really the best site for eco-logistics projects. The most important task for us in the future is to recruit more members in these eco-logistic projects. Next page, please. We have 5 pilot zones or demo sites in terms of eco-logistics in Taoyuan, in Shaolin, green warehouse, and also the airport warehousing and logistics. Qingpu, the green energy logistics cluster, and Zhonghua Post Logistics, and the Huaya Technology Park site, as well as Daxi shopping area demo sites. It is our hope that we will work on smart design, low carbon, and people-centered, low pollution, low noise level, and also minimal packaging. And all the requirements of circular economy are included in these eco-logistics projects. That also covered PM 2.5 air pollution. Around 20% of the PM 2.5 comes from logistics industry in Taoyuan. So this is something we also would like to address so that we can also improve the quality of life for our citizens. This is the Daxi eco-logistic demo site. This is the last mile for shipping. In Daxi, you can see the very old buildings, some historic sites. This is the area that was the earliest development project in Taoyuan, some Baroque building styles. It used to be a port, but now you can see that Daxi has attracted a lot of tourists. It actually ranked #1 in domestic travel destinations in Taiwan. So I will talk about how we can make low carbon logistics happen by the design of last mile shipping. Next page. #1, we have the low carbon and the quiet consolidation station, or the calming, traffic calming transit stations. So this is a very quiet area. Even if there are a lot of logistic activities happening in this area, we made these old parking lot into the low carbon transit stations or consolidation stations so that the traffic congestion can be minimized and also less human traffic. This is what we use for the last mile, the logistics. For example, the electric tricycle, electric scooters, and follow me vehicles. So we have created the traffic calming area. Let's move to next page. Let's take a look at this 30-second short video. Can we play the video? Can we play the video? No? Sorry. You can find this video on YouTube. To conclude, let me say that we also need a culture, smart, sustainable element in this low carbon eco-logistics city. Next page, please. I also talked about in promoting such a eco-logistics model, 68% of the population lived in urban area in Taiwan, and cities also generate a lot of pollutions. We need to reduce CO2 emissions. This is something we need to address in cities. As chair of the International Eco-Logistics Community, we invite cities all over the world to join us so that we can make contribution to achieve a sustainable city. Thank you.
Dr. Liu, I think for Taoyuan to join the eco-logistics as the chair and also share this demo site in Daxi actually perform a very, very good solution. Yeah, when we talk about the sustainable city and climate issues, well, in the traditional way, people think about that environmental issue. But for these few years, we work with Taoyuan, and we would like to transform it a development issue, not only an environmental issue. So we combine this eco-logistics with business sector, the logistic enterprise, and also we provide a new solution for transportation. I think that's a very good demonstration, and also to share to all the cities we can make it. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Liu. So for the second speaker will be from Saudi Arabia, from online. Mr. Mohammed is here. Okay, great. So actually, Mr. Mohammed is the director of the KAUST, a very, very famous the Science Technology University in Saudi Arabia, and he is the director for digital experience and innovation, and also leading autonomous vehicle project, the first one in Saudi Arabia. So welcome, Mr. Mohammed. The floor is yours.
Thank you all very much. I hope you can hear me well, and I'm happy to be participating in this. I thank the organizers. I wish I was there in person. I definitely look forward to that in the future, but we have to do what we can do and present virtually as much as we can these days. If you don't mind, would you like me to put the slides, or you want to share the slides? I can do it either way. All right, there you go. You have the slides. Good. So I'll just be giving you a cue for the next slide, please. So my name is Mohammed Abdul Al. I belong to the university in Saudi Arabia known as KAUST, K-A-U-S-T, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. I'm the director of what we call Digital Experience and Innovation, and I'll explain what that is, and I'll try to connect it to sustainability as much as I can. If you can go to the next slide, please. Wonderful. So when we look into this word, we call it living lab. We consider KAUST as a living lab, and I'll explain why we think of it as a living lab. But what is a living lab? In our view, in our definition, we think of a living lab as a place you can experiment, you can do some trials, you can fail, you can also engage partners, industry, and other people in the community, and you can focus on what's important, which is the user experience and the mindset and the culture of that place you're in right now. And we think of as a KAUST as a living lab for a lot of reasons. If you haven't been to the area, we want to welcome you to come learn more about it. But we have a unique place at KAUST, and I'll tell you why also we think of it in terms of sustainability. If you can go to the next slide, please. Great. So in case you don't know where we are based on the western side of Saudi Arabia. This is on the Red Sea. And our location is north of the city of Jeddah. Jeddah is a metropolitan area. We're a little bit further up north from that location. I know there's a little bit of noise on the line. I hope it's okay. You can hear me okay. Maybe it's an echo, but let's continue. Next slide, please. And sorry, next slide. Great. So the University of KAUST, King Abdullah University, is a city as well. It's not a university only. It's actually a city that is completely in our control. This is why we love the opportunity that comes along of having a full control in the city under one management group, a very flat organization, and there's no need to go through the typical city policy making, council permits, reviews, etc. So somewhat good control over a small size city. If you can animate the slide, please, if you click next, you'll see the city composed of multiple areas. Can you click next, please? Yeah, so we have a university campus attached to an area we call the community. This is where people live in the city as well. And we have a research park and technology park area that allows industry partners and startup companies to also be part of the large community of KAUST. So again, it's a representative city of a true living body. We've been in existence for about 12 years now. So we have patterns of life. We know what people do, what people consume, how they use the mobility and transportation, how they use their homes. There's a very good amount of data that we have so far that we're trying to build upon this knowledge that we've collected in the last 12 years. Next slide, please. So in terms of numbers, just to give you an idea, roughly speaking, our institution is about 10,000 people or so that live, work, and play. We have about 2,000 plus employees, approximately 1,000 or so students, and again, roughly about 7,000 kids, dependents, wives, children, etc. During the normal day, we have workforce that comes from outside and contribute to the operation of the university and the city. So we go up to about 12,000 people roughly per day. Please. So what do we focus on as an institution? We focus on multiple dimensions. We focus on water, food, energy, environment, and we have a lot of resources that allows that research to happen, including supercomputing power. We have Shaheen, which is a known supercomputer in the industry, visualization, Red Sea. But most recently, our president, Professor Tony Chan, added one more dimension to the strategic research of the university, which if you click next, please, it's the digital pillar that was added. We realized that in addition to the importance of water, food, energy, and environment, digital has a very key role to play. And this is one of the ways where my group is trying to emphasize the intersection between digital and the rest of the things we do in terms of our research. Next slide. Great. So we decided to launch this brand called KAUST Smart. That smart word doesn't only mean digital, it means smart in a lot of ways. We think of KAUST Smart as a vehicle that allows the university to innovate, experiment, and try new things. When it comes to sustainability, this was brought up in the very early days of KAUST Smart. And we talked about sustainability, and we thought about how can we emphasize sustainability in the city without simply enforcing the topic and trying to make some drastic changes. We wanted to make it more experimental, allow people to be part of the journey of creating a sustainable city and experimenting. So we think of the KAUST Smart again as two things. One is let's experiment and try new things, but also let's take advantage of the community that we have at KAUST, the people of KAUST and the diversity that comes with that. One thing I forgot to mention in my early slides is we're about 112 nationalities that live in KAUST. So we have, everybody from the world is represented at KAUST, and that brings with it an opportunity and a challenge as well, from different cultural viewpoints and different ways of perceiving things. For example, we have a very large community of Northern Europeans that really believe in biking, and they like to bike every day. But you also have a population of, let's say, Middle Eastern culture that are sensitive to the weather. It's too hot, nobody bikes. How do we combine these two opportunities and bring them together? And this is part of the experimentation we're doing here. Next slide, please. I won't talk too much about this slide. When we talk about Cal Smart, we like to think of experiences, and we don't like to think of technology. So we thought of several experiences. One that's important today is a mobility experience, a very important experience we're tackling, but it connects with everything else. So all of these experiences are interconnected. Mobility, living, your home, how do you work, how do you hold events, how do you welcome visitors, they're all interconnected. And we're tackling each one of them separately, but we still come back and connect them all together. And sustainability cuts across all of them. So it's very obvious that sustainability is relevant to each of these areas as well. If you go next slide, please. So just to give you an example of how we do things, when we talk about our goals, our activities, we like to announce it publicly, and we like to engage the entire community of the city. That way they have involvement, there's input coming from them, there's also a little bit of that making people part of the journey as well. So this is just an example of things we do. You see that we're tackling multiple things around mobility, eco-mobility and micro-mobility. We're talking about things to do with delivery using drones, delivery of packages using drones, running autonomous cars and electrical vehicle, also biking and scooters is also part of it. There are many, many things we do, but we announce it, we get people engaged, make them part of the journey, and be creative with each other. Next slide, please. Great. So to have a sustainable, smart city, we know there are fundamentals required. There are some things that need to be there for this innovation to happen and to build on it. For example, from a pure technology viewpoint, we believe 5G is very important, and we have 5G today. We're running what we call LoRa, low-range Wi-Fi technology for connecting IoT devices. We know that digital wallets, digital payment, and a cashless community is very important. Identity is important. Having a digital twin of the city is also very important. And having a way of finding, navigating your way indoor, outdoor is also very important. And that plays a role not only in humans, but also in robots and autonomous vehicles and cars. We want autonomous cars to find its destination quickly. They need to be able to go to a location accurately. So all the stuff comes together as fundamentals required, and we're building these capabilities as we speak. This is not a one-time thing that is done. We're constantly evolving these fundamentals and enhancing it and building it. Next slide, please. Great. So when we talk about experiences, again, and we list all of them, if you click next, they all come together, we believe, in a mobile app form. They have to come, they have to connect, people have to touch them. So we believe in getting these experiences on a mobile application, and we apply a logical way of doing things. We have a methodology we apply. It's around design thinking, human-centered design, and all that is meant to allow these ideas to be translated to actionable things that happen on the ground. This is not a theoretical exercise. This is not a PowerPoint only. This is actually, we want to make it in the hands of the user so they can connect to these experiences. They can go through it, whether it's mobility, dining, finding your way as a visitor or as a resident of the city. And again, we engage our community and we conduct design sprints. And basically, if you click next one more time, and again, we have the classical support that comes from the IT organizations, the systems, the reliability, the resiliency, the data, the integration, etc., and the security, of course. Next. Great. So you can animate all of that. I know this is not the easiest thing to do on a virtual session, but if you can keep clicking next, next, next. And I'll catch my breath at that time. Wonderful. One more. And one last one. Great, if you can keep here. So the way we do things to create that sustainability, creativity initiatives, we try to get people to walk with us through a journey of innovation. Again, we don't think doing it top down will always work, and definitely bottoms up is very slow. So this is somewhere in the middle where we have enforcement and governance and good directions from the top management and the city administration, but we also want to do it in a way that allows people to be engaged. So we basically align people in the beginning, get them to talk and meet. We conduct design thinking workshops and sessions that are open. We conduct hackathons and try to do rapid prototyping, rapid experimentation, get a concept out, get feedback on it by the community. Yes, no, it doesn't work, whatever. The feedback is very important. And continue to market and talk about what we do. And ultimately, we will roll this out and have it available in production in larger scale, but also serving not only KAUST, but serving the region of Saudi Arabia. So we work very closely with cities like NEOM. You might have heard of NEOM, and other places where the scale happens in a much, much bigger scale, of course. Next slide. Let me talk about autonomous shuttles. So the autonomous mobility at KAUST began by a desire to look into ways that allow us to do the mobility in campus in a much more sustainable, energy efficient, but also a smart way. We considered autonomous cars. We also did some extensive research. And we ended up realizing that it's a bleeding edge technology. We want to be looking into it carefully, but also not jumping in completely, not knowing what to expect. So we began by a journey of discovering who's out there and conducting a pilot at KAUST. It is the first in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we're proud of that, but we don't think that's important. What's important is what we do with it, right? So we are currently running a pilot at KAUST. We're running 2 shuttles from 2 suppliers, and we're conducting that journey of analysis. Is it working? Is it human-centric? Can people interact with it? Do we have the proper infrastructure? Can we support them as well, right? What kind of maintenance is required from that? And we strongly believe we're in the right track. And I think the direction is electric, connected, and autonomous. Now, to various degrees, this may not be the case in every place, every city. Our campus is ready for that journey. So we are almost going to come back and say, yeah, let's do some more, right? We want to have more autonomous cars, more autonomous, smaller type solutions as well. And we want to open up the campus for this experimentation to be done more in the future. We build a lot of knowledge on what it takes to run autonomous cars in the campus or in the city. And that is also feeding the suppliers, because they're also learning, what works and what doesn't work. I have a hot climate, very hot weather in the summer. How can you do air conditioning in a way that is also sustainable, doesn't drain the battery, and still gives people the comfort they require? And that's a challenge. That's not an easy thing to do. It's easy to do it in Europe, but in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it's also not easy. Battery technology as well is very important. How does the battery sustain itself in 40+ degrees Celsius? So this is what we're doing. We're currently running it. We had to slow it down in COVID-19, but we began again just about a month ago. So the timeline here is not accurate, but we're still in this journey for at least another year or so. Next slide. With autonomous also comes more capabilities. We learned the lessons of how to bring them in, the logistics of doing it, what the infrastructure required. Electrical charging is easy, but not immediately obvious to all type of electricians and maintenance. How do we map the campus? How do we train our people to support this journey? And also how to do the proper advertising and safety considerations. How to get people comfortable with that? Because at the end of the day, it is a car that drives itself. Now, that is easy to say, but hard to do. And people have different degrees of appreciation and also risk. What happens if it doesn't stop? What happens if I jump in front of it? Would it see a kid on a bike, or would it be able to detect an animal, for example, a dog? It's a challenge, right? The technology is there, but the human piece of it is the missing link. Next slide, please. And we're doing some more stuff. We're connecting the autonomous cars to bus stops, right? So if you are at a bus stop, you want to experience an autonomous way of dealing with it, and also it's done mainly from an app as well. Integrating with a mobile app is very important, but also connecting it to the rest of the infrastructure, traffic lights, fire and ambulances should be able to have the right of way. How would an autonomous car give the right of way to an ambulance is a very interesting challenge. And we're tackling all these challenges at the same time as well. Next slide, please. One other experience I'm going to talk about, it is not mobility related, but very much connected to it. We have our own homes here at KAUST. KAUST has about 3,000 plus homes. When we talk about sustainability as city, homes are a very major drain on energy. They consume a lot of energy. Air conditioning is a big factor in that. And we also decided to jump on an experiment of designing a smart home. What would a smart home in a hot climate should look like? And it's not smart about in terms of digital only. It's also smart in the terms of energy, greenery, water, and irrigation as well, and water waste. So we're running this experiment as we speak, and it's a very interesting one. We're learning a lot of things. We're doing geothermal as a way of exploring air cooling. And again, it is not exactly what we think it should be. It's an experiment that could not work well, and that's perfectly fine. We're putting solar panels. We're putting also, interestingly, from a mobility perspective, we're also putting a drone receiving chimney for drones to deliver packages to the home using that top of the home chimney kind of a system. And also we believe it's going to be hosting electrical cars. So we're designing the home to accept electrical vehicles and hopefully also an autonomous type mode of transportation. So it connects to everything else we're doing, but I wanted to highlight that living in homes is very much important to eco-mobility as well. Next slide, please. So I want to summarize because I know I only have 10 minutes or so. KAUST is a place to experiment and to partner and be part of the journey. We welcome you and anybody else who wants to know more about it, to connect with us and be part of this journey. We depend on industry partnership, but also other cities to allow us to benchmark and learn from each other what you're doing, what we're doing, how does your environment differ than our environment. So please feel free to reach out and connect with me. Unfortunately, I used to have a slide that has my name and email address. I think it's missing from the slide, but I'm sure the organizers are able to connect with me, anybody who's interested. And next slide, please, is my last slide, is a visual of our beautiful campus. This is facing the Red Sea. We have a symbolic tower at KAUST, which is in the middle here. It's our beacon of knowledge to the world. And that's my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much from the Mr. Mohammed. Actually, as you said, the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology actually is a quite unique place as a living lab. And I think we have a lot of enterprise here. I think they would like to visit after this pandemic. And also, I think for Taoyuan, we have the autonomous vehicle place experiment in Hutousan area. I think for this part, we also can share the experience from each other. So thank you very much for the presentation, and we hope to visit your campus very, very soon. Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you. So our next speaker is Mr. Pascal. Pascal is a good friend. Actually, he represents the Grenoble, which is a science technology city or region in France. And and he stayed in Taiwan for a few years already. So yeah, has very good experience to compare and give some thoughts. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thanks for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here again this year. I would like to thank the organizer, and in particular Taoyuan City, which is actually our sister city here in Taiwan. So can I have the slide, please? Thank you. So my presentation today will be about hydrogen technology for sustainable city, and I will really stick to the theme of this second session. So I will talk about eco-mobility and eco-logistics, showing some concrete examples about PPP project. But just before jumping to these projects, I would like to highlight one of our awards that we just received last year. So actually, this European Green Capital has been just introduced very, very briefly by Thomas Jurgensen. So currently is Lisbon, and last year at the same forum here, I was announcing that we were part of the 4 finalists, and actually now we are the winner for the year 2022. So we are very excited about that. And
congratulations.
Thank you. So there will be a lot of events next year in Grenoble, in France, in Europe, and also in Taiwan, for sure. So let's jump to my presentation. Okay, so part of this award, actually one of the criteria, there are 12 criteria, and one of the criteria is the so-called sustainable urban mobility. And Grenoble Alps has been ranked number 1 among all the participants for that year. So there are a lot of activities that has been highlighted, such as bicycle, reducing CO2 emissions, modernizing buses, for example. And we can also rely a lot on our community here, because we have a lot of people that actually are very eco-friendly and using either bicycle or foot to go working. These are some new examples, and actually they are all PPP examples. So some classic, this is a hybrid electric bicycle sharing or some e-scooters. We are welcoming foreign companies to operate also in our city. So it's important. And in the middle, you see that we also have a quite unique project ongoing, under construction right now, which is a urban cable car connecting our public transportation systems downtown. So it's really in downtown, it's in the valley. It's not going uphill, it's really in downtown. And we are very excited about this project that will be ready by 2024. This is just one slide explaining the context in France about the Hydrogen Plan 2020. So this is a very ambitious plan, started last year, February 2022. It is part of one of the 11 strategic markets identified by the French government. And there were a call for projects, a lot of applications, a lot of commitment in terms of investment. So a total about 32 billion euros has been committed, both private and public. And 7 billion euros actually from the French government are from public funding linked to hydrogen. And among those 2 billion will be ready before 2022, so very soon. And the goals of this national plan is to install enough electrolyzers around the country to have a real impact. So we're not talking about pilot anymore, we're talking about really implementation and getting an impact. And really the key application is to develop clean transportation, especially for logistics, and of course to create jobs at the political level. Next slide. So Grenoble has been a pioneer in hydrogen. We have started actually a first project for mobility in 2014. And we have now a very rich ecosystems, including a lot of big companies, but also SMEs, a lot of startups and scale-ups actually are jumped to that hydrogen technology. And what is also very important is labs and the research institute that are helping for that. So we can really rely on this ecosystem, which is very, very rich, and that's why we can pursue our journey in this hydrogen technology. Next slide. This is just one example I can share with you. I choose that one because, maybe you don't know Mr. Louis Vica. is actually the inventor of the artificial cement in the 19th century. He invented the cement in Grenoble. And for me, cement is maybe was the first, maybe still the first building blocks of a sustainable city, if you imagine that. And the company Vica is still operating a cemetery around Grenoble. And they are doing a lot of activities with either the public utility, electricity utility company, so EDF in France, to reuse the heat generated from the production to create enough hydrogen. This is enough to power actually 10 trucks out of this cement factory. And the second example here is also collaboration with R&D Center. And this is a key innovations using the waste of that factory to increase the electrolysis efficiency to produce more hydrogen in a better way. Next slide. So I think you know Air Liquide, and you know that Air Liquide, this has been introduced later by Mr. Casabon-Maisonneuve, also my very old friend Giuseppe. So you know what's happening here in Taiwan. But that maybe you don't know is that actually Air Liquide has a very big site in Grenoble. It's actually the first industrial site in France, in our city, employing a lot of people. And this is also one of the key major R&D center, especially for hydrogen refueling stations. So this is where in Grenoble they are designing and they are producing those stations. So this is, I think, a key link that we can leverage as well with Taoyuan, with other cities in Taiwan to create more between this expertise and what's happening here in Taiwan. Next slide. So this is one of the projects ongoing. It started in 2017. It's called Impulsion. It is co-financed by the European Commission, also by ADEME. This has been presented by Mr. Casabon-Maisonneuve earlier. The project is really to deploy a network of stations, so 20 stations across the region. So the size here, the map here, is about twice the size as Taiwan, just to give you an idea. So it's about twice the size as Taiwan. And we are deploying 20 hydrogen stations here. To equip 1,200 vehicles, trucks or small cars, including across the territory 15 electrolyzers that will be set up there. This is actually the largest zero-emission hydrogen mobility deployment in France, and maybe one of the most ambitious in Europe undergoing. So that could be a very interesting example for Taiwan and the rest of the world. Next slide. This is a pure PPP, okay? So actually a joint venture company has been created with 51% on the private sector side and 49% on the public side. So on the right side, you see the public side. So 33% is coming from the public government, the authority, 16% from the Banque des Territoires. So this bank has been also introduced by Mr. Casabon-Maisonneuve earlier, which is a public bank. And the 51% are shared between two big companies that you may know, ENGIE and Michelin, and also a private bank, CA, Crédit Agricole, which is also part of these initiatives and this JV here. So you see that actually we can achieve very strong collaboration between the private sector and the public authorities, including financing. Next slide. Outside those shareholders, we have also a lot of partners. You have some names here. Actually, they used to be startup. Now they are really scale up, like HRS, which has just been IPO'd earlier this year. So we also rely on a lot of innovation from startup and from those scale up now. For example, providing filling stations and electrolyzers for that specific project. Next slide. So I think this helps you to understand what we are doing in our city and in our region in France. It's very ambitious, and that may be some interesting food for thought for you. Please visit us. We have a booth in a Smart City exhibition in Taipei this week. So if you want to have more, and if you're in Taiwan, and if you want to discuss with us about that specific topics or other topics about Smart City, thank you. Thanks for your attention.
Okay. Well, Thank you. Very good presentation from Pascal. Actually, when the colleagues here to visit the booth in Nangang, and also you can visit the booth in Taoyuan. They have a very big booth in the Nangang exhibition hall, and also ICDI's booth is just next to the Green Nobles. Okay, so actually, as Pascal said, hydrogen plays very key important role in the future, I think. And also we see that for like Japan green growth strategy released last year in December by their Prime Minister, actually hydrogen also plays a very, very key role. So I think for Air Liquide, we know that for you invest a lot in Taiwan, in Tainan. You can think about that in Taoyuan and for the next step. Okay, so we can also cooperate for the future hydrogen projects in Taoyuan. Okay, so our next speaker is from Sudamento. Actually, Sudamento is the manager from IGIS, and you also see IGIS plays a very, very good platform for the VLR around the world. And for Dr. Sudamento, he is the first author for the IPCC AR6 for mobility transportation. So a very, very key role, and also a very senior scientist. So is Sudamento online now?
Yes.
Yes? Yeah, we can hear you. Okay, oh, nice to hear you. Okay, so we are willing to listen to your presentation. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. I'm happy to join again with this forum. I would like to visit Taiwan again, but due to the condition, we still cannot move to across border the country. So I'm happy to share with you my presentation here. Can you see my slide? Okay, I will continue. So as mentioned in the opening ceremony of opening session this afternoon, that the city is important, and city is also laboratory for many transformative action. However, the basic question is how to make change happen in the city. So this time I would like to introduce our activities, how to make change happen in the city level. So here I will introduce several activities in IGES on the eco-mobility at the city level. So in the literature review or urban transition pathway, there is three key important factors. The first is on the climate change action. The second one is on the governance, and the third one on the behavior. On IGES, we basically has a four-step approach on the policy-oriented research on eco-mobility. First is on the emission inventory, and the second one we are on the prioritizing the local action. The third one, how to quantify the impact on the priority policy to support decision-making process, and then how to translate this policy research into practical action. So in the implementation, the important factor that we always need to consider first is on the technical capacity, on the administrative way, and also on the economic, social, and also political, because this is important when we would like to make change happen in the city level. And also multi-stakeholder engagement is important because it is not only a top-down approach, but also sometimes a bottom-up approach, and also it involves the multi-levels and multi-stakeholder engagement. And in the core of principle, we need to have effective laws, and also capacity and coordination, and also participation, and also accountability. So here we will give you some insight from the three examples in the three cities which have a different transformative action in those cities. First in Bandung, focus on more on the behavior, and on Semarang city, focus on the low carbon transport for the bus, and the third one in Jakarta city for the electrification of public bus. This is a very very hot topic at this moment. So this is summary of our activities, because our activities is multi-years and in many locations. So we start the activities on eco-mobility since 6 years ago in many cities, and use the similar approach to other cities and bring the experience one cities to other city and adjust it to the location from the various technology intervention, behavioral change, and also governance, the three key important issues. Here, for example, when we talk about investment on green infrastructure for the cities in developing countries, actually it will give impact on the willingness to increase walking distance. We have a positive result in Bogor and Bandung, where the government put the investment on the green infrastructure, actually increase the acceptable walking distance and also increase the walking distance. Well, finally, it will reduce the GHG emission reduction. But also this is very small, but it is very good in reduction of GHG emission. Now, probably this will also link to the SDG. For example, on the SDG Sustainable Development Goals indicator on the providing safe walking environment for the citizen. The other behavioral change is for example of eco-driving, because this will give you exactly the fuel saving, which is also save the operational cost and also reduce the GHG emission. The third behavioral change example is a program or behavioral intervention for young students, which is representing a transition phase between childhood and adulthood, to protect them to use the private vehicle in the future. So such kind of intervention is a good investment for us, for future generations. The example in Semarang is how we introduce low carbon technology, or technology intervention, through the retrofit program of the fuel conversion from the diesel to hybrid diesel and CNG bus for about 72 bus of the Trans Semarang. Trans Semarang is a public bus in Semarang city under the joint crediting mechanism and city-to-city cooperation between Japanese cities and Indonesian cities. So this is a kind of example of the city-to-city cooperation can actually improve or can help the city to achieve that low carbon plan. So we develop a base on the city master plan and step-by-step process, and also multi-years, and also multi-partnership and blending the resource. The project is actually launched in 2019, and fuel saving of 72 bus is about $572 per day. So it is a good saving for the bus operator. The last example is our involvement in the electrification of bus in Jakarta, because from our modeling research, the electrification of public bus will give the opportunity to reduce the GHG emission, although it is not so big compared to other sectors. Because this is very new for the city, and also they would like to make a smooth transition. So the city is very careful in preparing the transition process. So they did the first like a preparation, pre-trial without passenger, and trial with passenger. You can imagine if the city need to handle the mobility about 2 million people in a day. If they need to make a change or like a transformation action, then they need to make it carefully and to be successfully. So the operator of bus in Jakarta prepared some step-by-step change in their operation. So with that example, we can analyze that enabling condition for transformative action on the eco-mobility at the city level is basically consists of three main components. First is building the capacity. We need to work with many local experts and local data that familiar with the necessary data, availability, and easily to be accessed. because then it is helpful to develop a real proposal for real action. And also stakeholder engagement is important because bottom-up ideas, stakeholder decision-making process, ownership of the project by many parties, and leadership of the city mayor. This is the key. And the most important to make change happen, to make it realize the transformative action is the critical factor was detailed understanding on how planning and budgeting process function in both theory and practice. So we need to understand how this budgeting process from the planning processes and on the implementation is functioning very well. So the key message and for the future direction, first, the transformative process from the policy-oriented research to practical action needs several years. However, it brought multiple benefits to the city. It is visible because of several factors. First, have enough capacity for the city, and the second one, stakeholder engagement and partnership, include with international organizations, and how to mobilize and blend the resource. For the future direction, we think that we can expand to other sectors within the city. For example, nexus between transport and waste management. As you may know that nowadays the online shopping behavior has increased due to the pandemic situation. People are restricted to move, and then the online shopping is increased. However, it also gives the side impact on the residential waste. On how we need to deal with this important issue is our next research direction. The second one, this experience could offer to other cities in Indonesia and Asia useful insight on the path to more sustainable future. So by this key message, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Please visit our website. If you need further information, please also, you can contact me through the email and we can continue the communication. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sudamento. Well, as he said, actually, for the cities like in Indonesia, mega city like Jakarta, actually they have very special experience and like heavy traffic in this environment, and they try their best combine the theory and practical experience to improve. I think we can also learn from that. Thank you very much, Dr. Sudamento. See you next time. Thank you. Okay, so I just learned from my colleagues, we have guests from MOFA, the Director General Liang Guangzhong Sizang is here and to join us in the second session. So he's here to say hello to our participants. Okay. Welcome. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So our next speaker is from Montreal, from Enterprise BC. They cooperate with Montreal City Government and to provide a very good bike system. So can we have the speaker from BC, from Josephine Allen, please?
Ciao, bonjour, mesdames et messieurs du Canada. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. I'm Jo Allen, Director of Marketing and Sales at Big C. Thank you for inviting me to be part of a discussion as important as sustainable cities. But first, a little bit about our hometown. Just bear with me for a moment while I bring up the presentation. Big C is situated in Montreal in the province of Quebec and is the second largest city in Canada. In addition to harsh winters and plentiful resources, Montreal is home to poutine, a dish made of French fries topped with cheese curds and gravy. A city where hockey is not just a sport, it's a religion. And when we're not out enjoying the arts, sports, or food, which are all of our favorite pastimes, we're often bemoaning Montreal traffic. According to the INRIX Global Traffic Scorecard, Montreal ranks in the top 20 of the world's most congested cities. Montrealers lose an estimated 3 million work hours because of traffic each year. Given that 42% of greenhouse gas emissions are concentrated in the transportation sector, of which 35% come from cars, the challenge facing governments is reducing the use of single-passenger cars and to reduce traffic congestion. Part of the measures adopted, therefore, are related to public transit and the electrification of transportation. While cycling won't replace cars entirely, the benefits of cycling as an integral part of a sustainable city are clear. As mentioned in L'État du vélo au Québec, the State of the Bicycle in Quebec report, the 43 kilometers traveled weekly by Quebec cyclists between May and September would generate, if they were covered by car, 900,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Furthermore, using the World Health Organization's Health Economic Assessment tool, the benefits of physical activity generated by cycling in Quebec can be calculated to help prevent 390 deaths per year. Specifically in Montreal, several measures are underway to tackle traffic congestion, including a project you see on the screen called the Réseau Express Vélo, a network of 184 kilometers of bicycle paths integrated across the city. Forecasts expect cycling to account for 15% of all trips in Montreal within 10 years. Enter Bixi. In 2007, the City of Montreal mandated the Montreal Parking Authority to design, build, operate, and maintain a bike share system. In 2009, Bixi started with 3,000 bikes and 300 stations, growing to a global success. In 2014, Bixi became a nonprofit organization focused as an operator in Montreal, and PBSC Solutions was created to handle international sales. Designed and manufactured in Canada, Bixi bikes are made tough, not just to endure our climate, but have you seen the size of our potholes? Yet another fun fact, Montreal is rated #1 for the most potholes in the world. But I digress. The Bixi ecosystem accounts for over 250 direct and indirect jobs across Quebec in manufacturing, IT, logistics, and services. With a network of 9,000 bikes and almost 700 stations, we serve 1.1 million residents, which makes Bixi's network the largest in North America after New York City. And now with an injection of almost 2,000 electric bikes, our electric fleet is also among the largest in North America. Bixi accounts for more than 20% of the daily bicycle traffic on the territory of Montreal, with an average of 30,000 trips a day. When you take a look at the 11 years cumulatively, Bixi riders have traveled 124 million kilometers. That's 3,100 times around the Earth, or 160 trips to the moon and back. That equates to 23,000 tons of CO2 saved and almost $13 million of gas expenses avoided. As you can see, year over year, the number of trips have grown, the number of stations, and naturally the number of members. Enter 2020. When here in Canada, March 13th was our first day of confinement, and the Bixi season starts on April the 15th. It's a 7-month season that goes until November the 15th. So in April, really at the very beginning of the pandemic in Canada, we saw a 70% reduction in rides in April year over year. And for the entire season, it equated to 45% reduction. With people staying home from work, the morning rush hour peak was replaced by weekend leisure rides. And we definitely saw an increase in occasional riders. The electric bikes became very popular. The challenge for us as an operator is offsetting higher operational costs associated with the electrification of the fleet, of the stations, swapping out the batteries, the higher maintenance, the higher usage rate, etc. Tight financial management allowed Bixi to deliver a balanced budget in 2020. And with vaccinations underway and Montrealers itching to get out on their bikes after a long winter, we're optimistic for a solid 2021 season. This year, we're also shifting to a variable pricing model from a fixed pricing model, and we've reduced our monthly memberships by almost 50% to $19 a month. So the idea here, the goal is to really make it more affordable for more people and give them more flexibility. And goodness knows in our lives today, we could all use a little bit more flexibility. So what does an average Bixi rider look like? On average, they're 36 years old, 57% men, and 3/4 of our Bixi riders are French-speaking first. They live a very urban lifestyle. They're active, they're trendy, they like to go out and socialize, and usually young, single, or in a couple, university graduated, and they definitely like to seek out things new and innovative. It's interesting to note that half of Bixi members actually own their own personal bike. Of those who own their bike, 42% use Bixi because it's less hassle. So you don't have to worry about a lock or carrying your bike upstairs or maintenance. And 36% use Bixi because it's worry-free. You don't have to worry about whether your bike gets stolen or into an accident. So a day in the life of Bixi, the Bixi bike. The average trip is 14 minutes long and less than 3 kilometers. As I said earlier, there are on average 30,000 trips per day. 80% of the trips are taken by members, and we have a 94% satisfaction rate for our members. As you can see, 64% pre-pandemic were taken to and from work or school. Of course, that's changed recently, but we'll see where the new normal takes us. And on average, about 44 million rides. When you compare the electric bike to the regular bike, you can see, obviously, as you would expect, they go for longer distances, longer time, and they're rented more frequently. In Montreal, we also have a mountain in the middle of our city, so riding up the hill with an electric bike is just that much easier, as you can see in the difference in altitude. So the Bixi rider is an intermodal person who often will take bus or the subway in conjunction with the Bixi ride, and naturally being a 7-month service, of course they have to look at other transportation options off season. And with the addition of the electric bikes this year, bringing the total up to almost 20% of our fleet, it'll be interesting to see if we can attract a new segment of customers, those who may not have chosen to cycle in the past. Of course, we'll be watching closely to see if we can shift behavior from previously non-cyclists. And as you saw from the previous slide, Bixi riders are public transit users, so we've partnered with all the transport options in the city and have integrated offerings and cross promotions to promote the entire sustainable mobility ecosystem. The positive impacts of cycling are undeniable from a sustainability point of view. An interesting fact to note is that car ownership among Bixi members decreased 16% year over year to 38% last year. Is it causal or correlation? It's difficult to say, but regardless, there are less cars on the road, an increased quality of life, increased productivity, and lower greenhouse gas emissions, which all lead to a more sustainable city overall. I hope this has been informative, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out at info@biximontreal.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Okay, thank you from BC. Yeah, I think they provide alternative transportation in Montreal. Okay, so our last speaker is A.D. Chen from Covestro. Yep, the floor is yours.
Thank you. 谢谢主持人。
Thank you. On behalf of my company, Covestron, I'm here to make a brief presentation. The previous speakers all talked about, especially in session 1, 70% of people live in urban area. The most environmentally friendly the vehicle, as the previous speaker from Montreal just talked about, it is bicycle. So let me talk about Covestro, my company, what Covestro is doing. In 2015, Covestro was created from buyer you can see our annual revenue is 10.7 billion euro. And we have the 17,200 employees. Our goal is to deliver the best products and services to our customers. We have products in buildings, car industries, and even in the product you use for recreational activity, for example, the footwear. And also, the optical disc, which we use quite heavily in the past. Our footprint in Taiwan, our operation headquarters is in Taipei, and we also have production site in Zhanghua and Kaohsiung. The Zhanghua site is 100% for the production of the TPUs. This is the largest TPU production site for Covestro in Asia. We also set up our R&D center at this site. This site also produces a bio-based TPU that also reduce the petrochemical materials we use in the production process. Next, let me talk about how we can make mobility more eco-friendly. Cars and other vehicles are the major emitters and the biggest source of air pollution in urban area. Is there any solution or better solution for eco-mobility? Bicycles. You may think about why Covestro talks about a bicycle. We actually work with Airform to deliver a solution. We actually have the founders and his wife, the founders of the Airform, sitting in the audience today. So we listen to Airform about some of the creative ideas and innovation for bicycle design. This is a great vehicle to reduce air pollution. But there are some problems you experience with traditional bicycles, especially for the bike sharing system. For example, U-bike, a lot of maintenance is on the tires. Our solution is like this. Using TPU and put it in the mold, which can come up with the shape of the tires. That will replace pneumatic tires. So there's no flat tire problem. Even if the roads have many potholes, flat tire is a big challenge for cyclists. But for the TPU tire, you won't experience the flat tire anymore. For this advanced particle form material, it is lightweight. It is also very durable. And there's no worry of the flat tire. TPU can bounce back very quickly. It can recover its original shape very quickly, even if you applied strong force on the tire. So that will make a more comfortable ride for riders, even on the very rough terrains. So this is what we delivered to improve the riding experiences for cyclists. You can see the blue portion. That's the airform, the TPU, because it contacts the ground surface, so it needs to be elastic. And the deep gray, the portion, is also the TPU, but it is harder with higher rigidity. So this is the hard form. And the outer layer is TPU, the form. TPU has so many advantages, as I mentioned earlier. Actually, there's one more advantage. TPU is a 100% recyclable material. Its structure is very clear. You can see the blue portion is 100 TPU, and the gray part can also be 100% recycled. That solved the waste treatment issue. So with that kind of material and that kind of design, we believe that we will be fully circular. Covestro use SDGs to set up our policy goal. We believe that in the future we'll develop the more eco materials to make Covestro fully circular. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Presentation from AD, and I think they provide a very good solution for the next generation for the bike tire. Okay, so we conclude this session, and I would like to welcome the session chair of this session, and also the Deputy Secretary General, Mr. Qiu Junmin from Taoyuan City, to give the conclusion and also the remarks for this forum. Welcome, Mr. Qiu Junmin.
And today, one after another is very, very good, outstanding. So we are focusing on each different area, whether it's a bicycle system in Arabia's smart campus, or new H2 energy, or the last plastic product. I think it's a very good reference. Our Director of Environmental Bureau in Daxi Township also shared the insight with you. Let me try to do a summary. Let's focus on eco-logistics in ECLA framework. It is under the eco-transport. And so, frankly speaking, well, the chair city is for 3 years. And recently, we have done a lot of effort. Eco-logistics, I know it's not just talking about transport, but rather the planning of the whole whole city. It's a very broad way of thinking. And lastly, of course, he's advocating sustainability, sustainable city. So eco-logistics, I can summarize. In my opinion, may not be correct, but I hope that it's for your reference. I think it's surrounding green and smart. So in the future, the logistics shall be green building, green energy, green park, and green transport, and green packaging. Of course, joining smart management. We know today we have done build a lot of green or smart buildings. Maybe you just only know some surfaces. You don't know the core and the purpose. if the industry gets involved with this, if logistics get involved with this, they know clearly how to cost down, and they know clearly about this. Therefore, in the future, in logistics industry, we do hope they can have a smart green building. Actually, in Taoyuan, we have a lot of advanced logistic buildings, like a mobile. We visited it. It's a smart building and a green building. Again, it has its green energy. It has its solar PV, and it also has green energy management, especially in the logistics region. In the past, it was scattering around different areas in the city. In the future, little by little, they will be clustered together, like a 5 demonstration zone, whether in the airport area or in Huaya area. In Huaya area, we have a China Post warehousing hub. In Dayuan area, we have a logistics zone. So in the future, we will have a lot of these clusters. They are smart and they are green, and they are using the green transport. So we have promoted a lot of biking, 2 wheels, 3 wheels, 4 wheels, electrical bicycles or vehicles. Those will be implemented in Daxi. Green transport, green logistics. We are also preparing to introduce automotive vehicle. Maybe in the future, Momo may have a smart autonomous driving path. So eventually, hopefully, they can reach to a green logistics park. In the future, government in developing this is also taking this direction. So everything becomes green. The green city, this concept will be gradually realized. Taoyuan should stay away from traditional industrial pollutions, noises, as well as a lot of concepts that's not been liked by the local citizens, including CO2 emission, how to reduce that. In our eco-logistics, we will realize that. I hope this vision, this effort, I hope you can give us a lot of input. We see a lot of projects. They are very good. If there's a chance, we would like to visit different countries or different companies, and in the hope of creating a demonstration zone for eco-logistics. So ECLE, in these 3 years, we would like to have some good results to become a good demonstration for other cities. So today, I spent a lot of time. I still thank you for your participation. Taoyuan City Government needs your feedback, your intelligence, and sustainability and ecological issues, we need your help. Thank you.
Chou Junmin, our Deputy Secretary General. Actually, as the chair said, smart city is the approach to help us to manage and to govern the city, but the sustainable city is our common goal. So let's work together and push forward to this sustainable city. Thank you very much, and we see you next year. Thank you.
谢谢讲者们精彩的分享 Thank you for the precious sharing, and our summit is almost on the end, but we have to invite a guest. Also, we have to take a group photo. Please step in front. 好，我们要请贵宾们为我们第2场的讲座留下珍贵的合影。我们也请摄影大哥们赶快把握时间。感谢各位讲者今天非常 丰富的分享，今天的论坛圆满结束。2021的永续城市论坛到目前为止2场的讲座都已经圆满结束了。那么我们要请各位的贵宾移步，如果有租借口译机的贵宾离场的时候，请不要忘记归还，可以领回你的证件。如果有参与餐后的这个待会儿的这个餐叙呢，请您移动到会议厅，我们的会场在左手边的凯旋厅，会有工作人员来为您代位。没有参加的贵宾们，我们在报到处有餐点哦，有餐点，也欢迎您在离场的时候要记得领取。再次感谢各位贵宾的莅临，祝福您有一个美好的夜晚。Thank you for your cooperation. This is the end of the 2021 Sustainable City Forum. For those guests who borrowed the headphones and the interpretation equipment, please return and get back your ID card. If you will attend the following banquet, Taoyuan Night, please move to the tram 4, which is the left-hand side from the entrance. And the staff members will take you right there. Besides, we prepare gourmet meal for guests. If you are unlikely to join the banquet, please feel free to take one. Last, okay, but the guests would like to take the shuttle bus, come back to the Taiwan High-Speed Rail Taoyuan Station. Please move to the entrance of the Lyon Grand Ballroom. Our staff member will keep you company till the guests arrive their destination. Thank you again for your participation. Wish you